Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the 2020 WCO TECH CON. We hope you have thoroughly enjoyed day one of the conference. I would firstly like to announce that we will continue today with the Find the Contraband game organized by our corporate sponsor, Rapiscan, ASNE, ST Global. So you will have another opportunity to win a set of CertScan branded Beats headphones during the day. We saw that you very much enjoyed yesterday's game, so I hope you will participate in great numbers today as well. I would also like to share with you the results of the polls from yesterday. So these results have provided us already with some relevant guidance on what to focus on during the next technology conference. So big thanks to all who participated and provided their valuable views. From the poll results, we have learned that you would be most interested in hearing about blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, and data exchange projects. So we will keep this in mind for the next conference. And we actually have another poll today on the uptake of blockchain technology. So please don't forget to provide your answers. You just need to go to the menu on the top left corner of your EventMobi platform screen and choose the polls and surveys option. So we invite you to provide your responses there. You were also very creative in providing a short phrase in describing the future of technology and customs. And I would like to single out one that I think is particularly relevant for our next topic. So one of our participants said that the future of technology and customs is about being integrated, automated, and connected. And with that, we will now move to topic 3 of the TECH CON. Electronic services and paperless trade have been so important to both customs and to the economic operators during the pandemic. We will hear more about what has been the impact. The moderator of this next session will be Mr. Satya Prasad Sahu, famously known as SP, who is a senior trade facilitation specialist from the World Bank Group. He is involved in various projects concerning trade facilitation, trade logistics, border management, and customs modernization. Originally from the Indian customs, SP has worked for the WCO from 2008 to 2014, where he focused on the WCO data model and national single window solutions. With that, I would like to give the floor to SP. SP, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I warmly welcome all the speakers and all of the participants to join this panel. Thank you, Milena. Thank you for that introduction. So I invite all of the panelists to join. Please make sure that you have put your request to speak button on so that you can be brought on. Please turn your cameras on and keep them on during the presentations, even when you are not speaking, so that the audience can all see you. So you may mute the mic when you're not speaking, but please keep the request to speak on. You should share your screen when you start your presentations. So a warm greeting to all the participants in the TECH CON panel, the distinguished panelists. I will introduce them one by one. It is my privilege to moderate the discussion in this panel. And today we have 5 very distinguished panelists. Mrs. Marilu Larena, she is the Deputy Superintendent of Customs in Peru. Sunat, it's the Department of Revenue there. We have Mr. Norbert Cowenhagen, Trade Lens Authorities Leader from IBM. Ms. Meera Kumar, Vice President, Portal, the Port Community System of India. Ms. Valentina Ion, Director, Business Strategy, Microsoft Global. Mr. Solomon Raj from GETS and Crimson Logic. Ladies and gentlemen, digital technology experienced wide use during the COVID-19 outbreak. The pandemic has amplified the adoption of new technologies, which were already growing rapidly even before the pandemic broke. In a survey conducted by McKinsey & Company last month, it was found that the responses to COVID-19 has speeded up the adoption of the technology by several years, and many changes could be here for the long haul, even after the pandemic is over. So what was it like for customs? What were the changes introduced during pandemic by customs administrations around the world to allow contactless movement across the borders? What kind of technological solutions were adopted? What worked for them in terms of introducing paperless, contactless, and faceless clearances? What were the lessons learned, and what are the lasting gains for the administrations in the adoption of digital technologies, even in the post-COVID period, based on some of the measures taken during COVID-19? What was the experience of the private sector to respond to the changes to the pandemic? Was the private sector well prepared to adopt to these changes? What are the new exciting technologies that customs administrations and experienced people from the private sector adopted? What were the principal contributions on behalf of the private sector to adapt to this situation? You will hear all of this. Now let us hear the panelists. I will introduce the panelists one by one, and the panelists are requested to come and make their presentation. They are requested to share their slides. And also all the audiences are requested to keep their questions, note down their questions, so that when the questions come towards the end of the presentations, once all the presentations are over, we will invite the audience also, if there is time and there is possibility, for some questions and some discussions. I will also have some remarks and questions for the presentations. Let's have panelists now. We will begin in the same order as it is mentioned in the agenda. We begin with Mrs. Marilu Larena, Deputy Superintendent, Deputy National Superintendent of Customs, Sunat, Peru. Marilu Larena is a customs officer with over 20 years of experience at Sunat Revenue Authority. She has held key management positions. Currently, she holds the position of Deputy National Superintendent in the Peruvian Customs Director General's office. Marilu holds the master's degree in taxation and fiscal policy from the University of Lima, Peru, and an MBA in international trade from the University of Lleida, Spain. She has the studies and specializations in foreign trade and customs, as well as international taxation at the Inter-American Center for Tax Administration. Now, let's hear Marilu. Over to you, Marilu.
Thank you, SP. I want to share my screen. Good morning. It is an honor for me to share with this distinguished panel and the international customs community some implementations made by the Peruvian Customs Sunat on electronic services and paperless trade. I thank the WCO Secretariat for the invitation and for organization this virtual conference adapting to the new reality. I would like to start talking about the ad hoc changes during the pandemic to allow for contactless movements across borders. Since 2006 in Peru, we have been using the foreign train single window, WCO, which currently covers 70% of foreign trade procedures. However, due to the pandemic, it was necessary to eliminate any trace of paper. Therefore, we adjust 17 customs procedures, eliminating the physical presentation of documents. We intensify the use of the virtual reception desk, which is a tool that we already had available, but didn't not use much. its use has grown, reaching 89% of total documents submitted to the administration. We have also enabled the registration of taxpayers through smartphone devices. Today, we have 50,000 new taxpayers registered through our People app, meaning for the Peruvian economy, which is still highly informal, the pandemic has brought opportunities for formalization, which administrations must capitalize on through the creation of more user-friendly services, for instance, for e-commerce entrepreneurs. How do we avoid the presence of people? We implement teleworking, and currently we have 64% of people working from home, which I believe will continue in this new reality. Physical control was also prioritized for high-risk cargo, and we intensified non-intrusive control. Communication with users is key. We use various means, such as webinars, informative videos, social networks, reaching over 600,000 people. And we create a WhatsApp chat group with representatives of 16 of the main community, of the main private sector actors, which we call We Are All Customs, making communication more horizontal and transparent. I also want to mention that the pandemic made us more creative. We have a significant number of workers with a lot of experience, but who cannot do face-to-face work. Through assisted remote physical inspection, they guide from home a junior officers who can do face-to-face work. The whole process is filmed online and recorded in the cloud. We use this modality for some types of goods, of course. We also do documentary review, Orange Channel, by teleworking at 100%. What have been the lessons learned and what are the expected post-COVID? I think the pandemic accelerated the future and drove digitalization, and I believe that the new role of customs could be promote digitalization not only in public entities, but also in private sector companies that participate in the international supply chain. I mentioned that the WhatsApp chat group that we have with the private sector in Peru is called We Are All Customs. And it is true, for the ordinary citizen, any delay in the international supply chain is attributable to customs. A lesson learned in this pandemic is that the advance in the digitalization of our processes allowed us to quickly adapt to this new reality. Likewise, during the pandemic, new improvements have been implemented, such a digital platform in July in this year, which will have eliminate 100% of papers. All documents, broker mandates, rectification are digital. We have been able to reduce the total time of release of goods for export from 11.6 hours in 2019 to 1.7 hours today. Also, in August this year, the new digital import platform based on the WCO data model was implemented, thus eliminating 100% of papers. Pre-arrival customs clearance became mandatory. With a few exceptions, currently 70% of total import declarations are submitted in advance, which allows us to better manage risk and have an immediate release of goods upon arrival of cargo. Therefore, the total time of release of import goods has been reduced from 79 hours in 2019 to 38.9 hours currently. What are the most sustainable technologies for that truth? We consider that blockchain is a technology that will be used a lot in international trade, since this tool ensures transparency, unchangeable data, and security of transactions. SUNAT is participating in LACchain, an initiative led by the Inter-American Development Bank, through which the secure exchange of data for AO companies in Chile, Colombia, Peru, and Mexico is carried out with the aim of taking advantage of the benefits of the Pacific Alliance Mutual Recognition Agreement. Other sustainable technology for the future that we have already started to use is in artificial intelligence, like our Sophia virtual assistant, which is a chat box developed by IBM Watson that provides tax guidance to taxpayers. We live in a world run by algorithms. Therefore, our organization was adapted and has started to use machine learning. For example, the Yarrow-Winkler algorithm to detect inconsistencies between declared values in imports and financial information, which serves as input for post-clearance audits.
Could you please conclude?
Yes. We are working on new initiatives, Smart Borders, which aims to redesign our customs process control by strengthening our risk management with artificial intelligence in advanced analytics. It also aims at exploiting a large amount of information that we have as administration. This initiative will be addressed in a holistic approach. Of course, the challenge involves the development of new competencies of our customs officers to adapt a new reality. Finally, I want to finalize my presentation highlighting that it's necessary to have a comprehensive approach regarding customs control, relying on new technology to ensure physical integrity cargo and exploit the large amount of information. And above all, detect the people behind customs offenses, since customs play an important role in global security. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marilu, for the presentation. I request the audience to take note of the questions that they have in mind. We will go to the questions and discussions towards the end of the panel. Now I invite the next distinguished panelist, Mr. Norbert Covenhoven. Mr. Norbert Covenhoven is currently, he is the authorities leader on TradeLens in IBM, and he's currently focused on the TradeLens platform, specializing in a role for the customs organizations and authorities related to TradeLens. The other part of his focus is on customs projects in the European Union. IBM is involved in customs projects in the Netherlands, Belgium, United Kingdom, Denmark, New Zealand, United States, and more. UCC, the Union Customs Code, and MASP are important drivers of change in the European Union, and Norbert is leading in the creation of the UCC compliant solution set which IBM uses, especially in the current implementation in the Netherlands, UK, Denmark, and Belgium. As members of the European Commission's Digital Trade and Logistics Forum, Norbert supports the development of a network of federated platforms. Over to you, Norbert, take it away.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, WCO. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you. I will talk the next 10 minutes about TradeLens, about COVID, and how that influenced and boosted the digital processes that we are involved with. So I have some slides prepared. So I hope you can see my slides now. So TradeLens. First, what is TradeLens? I hope many of you know, have heard about it already a little bit, but just to put everybody on the same page. TradeLens is an industry-wide neutral blockchain platform digitizing the global supply chain. So what we're doing is we're collecting events and documents about container voyage, all the way from the moment the container is picked up empty until it is the doors are opened and the goods are arrived at the destination. So we collect events, gate in, gate out on the ship, customs release messages, and documents. And you see on the right-hand side a whole list of documents: the bill of lading, invoice, packing list, booking a request, arrival notice, whatever the participants are willing to share, we collect, so that we have an electronic pouch of everything that has happened to a container during its transport. And that platform is based on blockchain. So documents that are in the platform cannot be changed. When something starts as a firework, for example, an invoice about a firework, you cannot change that invoice anymore, and you cannot later change that into toys or whatever you would like it to look like during the import destination. So the blockchain is important. It has a clever design of permission data. Not every participant can see everything. Basically, only those who are connected to a container can see data about that container. And that includes the customs authorities, who have access to all the data about all the containers that pass through their country. We use standards, WCO data model, obviously, UN CFAX standards, so try to adhere as much to the current ways of working. Very secure, ISO certified, and connecting to the platform works as simple as possible with open APIs, so that you don't have to worry about the blockchain or complex stuff. It's just sending a message about a container, or sending a container number and getting information back about data, events, or documents about that container. So it's a data sharing platform. Where are we with this platform? It's pretty young. It's about 3-4 years old. The concept is much older. The data pipeline concept dates from 10, maybe even longer ago. The system itself is operational now around 4 years. Initially started by IBM and Maersk, where Maersk was the launching carrier who put all their data about their containers, and also from the terminals they own, the APM terminals, on the platform, which led to a fast start. At this moment, we have 19 carriers, ocean carriers, subscribing. That includes, and on the bottom I listed a few key ones, so obviously Maersk, but also CMA, CGM, and MSC. And altogether, already the three of them together represent about half of the world's containers. So we have a huge coverage. Data from about 600 ports around the world. We have also inland carriers, so trains, river barges, forwarding companies. We're still working on the network. We haven't covered the whole planet, but we are definitely trying to cover as much as we can. Already we have 30-40 million container voyages tracked. 14 million documents posted, so it's already operationally in big volumes. So of all those container voyages, we have the data. Now, this is designed for the private sector. It is, in the end, it began about, let's say, the example of a container arriving in a port, or a ship arriving in a port, and the truck had already left because the truck was there the day before. The truck arrived at the port, ship hadn't arrived. Disappointedly, the truck driver goes back home. That type of optimization was the main reason for the private sector to share data in the data pipeline, and TradeLens is a perfect platform for that. For authorities, for the private sector, sorry, for the public sector, this is of course a wealth of data they can use for all kinds of things. You see here a number of customs authorities who have signed up for TradeLens or are working with TradeLens to see how they can use that from all over the world in different forms. There's a lot you can do, and depending on the maturity of the authority, the IT capabilities, their economic situation, they use different ways to use TradeLens. I'll talk a bit about that. So what are the benefits? And for you here on the audience, you're all specialists, so you will immediately understand this. So on the one hand, it's about targeting. You get earlier data because when a ship leaves the port already, the document starts to fill in at origin, and the closer they get to destination, the more complete the set becomes. So earlier, more complete information, not only the mandatory data you now get from an import declaration, but also the other documents, the invoice, the bill of lading, the packing list, all kind of additional data points you can use to validate the import declaration. Earlier is an example of use of earlier. So using the commercial invoice to compare, so to fight valuation fraud at import. So compare the value on the commercial invoice with the value on the declaration, see if there's a fraud committed. The information is more trusted. So because it comes from the blockchain, it cannot be changed. So I already gave the example when something starts as a firework shipment at arrival in the destination. You know, today you might think, let's try to make it look like a tourist import. That's not possible. You would always see in the blockchain that original firework invoice, and you can use that to fight that type of fraud. So targeting, there's more transparency in general, because you can follow the whole life cycle of transport. There's less errors, less fraud, but you can also use it in a more positive way, so to say, for trade facilitation. And various customs are having different levels already in their mind. So one is because you provide more transparency as a TradeLens lane, you get de-risked, which is already helpful. But also you can think of a pre-filled, pre-populated import declarations or entry declarations straight from the blockchain. And why would you ask for a form if you as a customs have direct access? You could populate the declaration like income tax in some countries do. And then if you are an importer and you accept, you push the green button, you're in. If not, you have a longer conversation. Some countries even argue, why would I need an import declaration at all? If I have access to all the data, I will start doing risk assessment the moment the ship leaves the port of origin, and I will keep doing that. So when the ship arrives, I already have everything fully in my vision, what the ship is about, and I can either let it in, or I can charge them already before, or I can issue an inspection. So TradeLens opens a lot of opportunities. Simple to use. The APIs I already mentioned. We have all kinds of connectors to targeting software or broker software. So to pull out data from documents and make a data element set ready that you can put it straight in your broker software to populate a form, or put it in targeting software when you're customs and wanting to do risk analysis on a set of data. We are working on a Asicuda connector, an Asicuda hub, which end of next year will be available. so that Asicura users can get data elements straight from TradeLens to put that into their risk assessment. So I just wanted to make clear that there's a lot of benefits for customs. Now, the COVID. So we were, of course, in general, very much, strange enough, supported by COVID since there's a big wave in digitization. We heard it already from the Sunat presentation, 100% digital. That's what countries want. TradeLens, with all their documents electronically available, is a perfect connector for single windows, for custom single windows, so that you can have all the documents digitally available, and it's fully digital exchange. Specifically, one specific change, I think that's a nice anecdote to prove how COVID directly influenced digitization, is the e-bill of lading story. You will all know what a bill of lading is about. It was already a long time used since I think since 1500, 1600. It's a receipt document. If you give goods to a carrier to move from, let's say, Europe to Brazil, it's a receipt document, but it's also an ownership title. So it's a very important document, and it was always on paper. It had to be on paper by law, United Nations conventions. And that led to situations where when the container arrived in the port, you need a paper bill of lading to pick up the goods. However, arriving at the terminal with the paper, it says, oh, the bank first has to endorse. So today you would have to go with a motorbike to the bank, could be an hour drive, get a stamp there, a signature that it's okay, you have to pay some money to the bank, to fill your loan, and then you go back to the port, another hour drive, and then you can pick up the goods. So very cumbersome, time-consuming, but also contagious, contaminating risk. It's a lot of paper moving around, a lot of people meeting each other. So India triggered this. The Ministry of Shipping sent a mail. They said, listen, guys, we need to work paperless. We know the bill of lading has this legislation, but there is now new models. There's e-bill of ladings. And please consider to use that, actually use that. So IBM and TradeLens at that moment had just finished their blockchain-based e-bill of lading process, where you need banks to be involved. You need the P&I club, so the insurance companies to cover that. Yeah. And you need, of course, the carriers to be involved. Well, the carriers are let's say, the main drivers behind TradeLens. So the carriers support. They issue an electronic bill of lading in the blockchain that can be transferred.
Please conclude because the time is your time is up.
Yes, it's my last sentences. Yeah. So the ownership can be transferred, and at arrival, the bill of lading can be surrendered, meaning you can hand in electronically the bill of lading and get your cargo. So completely paperless, completely touch-free. And this is, I think, a revolution in trade worldwide. There are a few other electronic platforms who also made this happen, not a lot, but this will take off, and for customs, a very important document with a lot of relevant information for their risk targeting or their trade facilitation. So that was an example of COVID trigger change. Thank you.
Thank you, Norbert. Now, our next speaker is Ms. Meera Kumar, Vice President, Portal. Meera Kumar is a maritime professional with experience of over 25 years in this domain. She has worked in container ports, port authorities, stevedoring, freight forwarding, customs clearance, and in technology solutioning. She's a fellow in the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers. She's also a member of the WISTA and a propounder of equal opportunity and collaboration. She's played an important role in the design and implementation of India's port community system, which plays a critical role in the journey towards paperless trade in India. Meera is also an expert volunteer with the UNECE and is currently contributing to several working groups. Over to you, Meera.
Thank you so much, SP. I'll start right away. I hope I'm visible.
Yes.
Paperless trade, certainly not a new concept, actually 9,000 years old, more or less. So if we look at trade really as quite literally exchange of goods, we started this with the barter, and it's only when we moved out of barter that we needed to find a unit to signify value. And that unit really started with things like seashells or pebbles or beads. And then it went on to gold, silver, or copper for their intrinsic value. And then it went on to coins embossed by the sovereign seal for authorization. And then we went on to finally find paper. And today we're talking about Bitcoin and electronic payments. On the other side, the old trading science in Egypt and in China started with stone, and literally the terms of the contract were carved in stone. And from there, we went on to silk reams, sealed again with the sovereign seal. And then we went on to discover papyrus and paper. And now we're moving on to blockchain and digital bills of lading. Even when we talk of the basic fundamentals of trade, I'll take a second to walk you through and ascertain what really are the differences in the way we as humans exchange goods and services. So let's look at the four main blocks of this. Basically, first starting with the goods themselves, the attributes of which are what is the origin of this good or service, what is the quality of this good, and what is the perceived value. Same attributes then and same attributes now. The second one coming to the owner, meaning the buyer and the seller. The attributes then being when does ownership shift from the buyer to the seller? And when does liability shift from the buyer to the seller? And where do we record the terms of this agreement or the contract? Same attributes then, same attributes now. Then let's come to the state. The state has a role to play to decide what goods can or cannot actually move across the borders. The state has a role to play in deciding whether taxes or duties are leviable on this trade. And then there's the politics of the time to decide whether someone is a friendly or unfriendly trading partner. Same attributes then, same attributes now. And then we come to the legal aspect of it. What happens when the trading partners got into a disagreement, whether it was between the buyer and the seller, or the buyer, the seller, and the state? How would each partner actually present its case, and how would you avoid acrimony? The attributes being, how do you define authentication? How do you have an audit trail? And how do you ensure immutability of whatever was inside that agreement? Same attributes then, and same attributes now. So what I'd like to say is that, yes, we're in a technical conference, but really speaking, in the evolution of human trade, moving from paper to digital is a little simpler than moving from seashells to where we are now. I know I've oversimplified, but that's a thought that we can walk away with. Moving on, the multi-pronged efforts of various bodies over close to 2 decades now in helping us move digital and move to paperless trade need to be appreciated. Starting from the UNSCAP and the Framework Agreement for Paperless Trade, particularly for our region in Asia-Pac, the World Trade Organization, and India set up a multi-ministerial committee for implementation of the TFA, the World Customs Organization and the wonderful work done towards transparency and digitalization. India is very active in WCO. We were Vice Chair APAC 2018 to 20. We are leading a drive in the region towards a digitally connected, technology-driven, paperless, secure, and a high-velocity customs. To the work of UNCITRAL, which then laid out the model laws, and India has partial coverage already and is working quite actively with working groups towards the MLITA, which is the newest one. UNCITRAL also left us with an interesting idea of using the free trade agreements to create paperless parts or trusted e-commerce parts, which are worth evaluating. Moving on to the ICC and the most recent Digital Standards Initiative of the ICC. The ICC's memo in May 2020 to all governments to void all impediments to electronic trade documents was used by us in India. And what the gentleman from TradeLens, Norbert, just mentioned actually was instigated with this memo. So we used this memo actually to alert the government bodies that there was suitable cause to drive this during COVID. So that's the benefit of the work done top down and globally, and how each government and each private service provider is leveraging this to deliver a solution. Closer to home, the International PCS Association, which we are a member of, today handles 50% of global trade with over 250 air and sea ports, and IPSCA is already working on a network of trusted networks. With over 20 years experience, 20 billion transactions, certainly IPSCA is one of the parties to help us move towards paperless trade. The Indian Ports Association and Portol, the company that I represent today, has won multiple awards for its PCS 1X, which has been named the Logistics Solution of the Year. Even in a perceived chaotic economy like India, we have been able to enable 60% of Indian maritime trade to move port processes from paper and cash to a digital means. What we saw in India through COVID, and I think in many parts of the world, was a return of the state. We saw governments rushing in to protect and facilitate trade, and India was no exception. Actually, from 2018 itself, we had commenced a pivot to Digital India. Several initiatives were launched from customs, from the Ministry of Finance, and in 2018 December, we went live with India's PCS 1X. By 2020, we actually saw the benefits of this, and India was one of the countries to jump 16 spots on the EODB parameters. Post-COVID-19, although, was when we really saw the benefits. And that's when we started seeing the customers getting vocal about the benefits they derived from technology and from the platforms. Again, as mentioned, the e-bill of lading was kicked off in India with the Ministry of Ports and Shipping, with the Ministry of Finance, the Reserve Bank of India, all coming together to facilitate the launch of the e-bill of lading. Today, 4 of the 6 IGPNI approved EBOL providers are already actively marketing their services in India, as is TradeLens, I must add. CargoX and SDocs are 2 parties who are direct competitors who were willing for the first time to come together on a single platform to serve the trade. And I think this sort of interoperability is what we've been driving at in India, and what has been the secret behind the speedy success that we got and the traction that we got. At the same time, Indian customs has been very active. Faceless customs was introduced during COVID-19, automated allocation of the bill of entry across the nation, and we're a large nation, no contact assessment, timeline set for speedy clearance, enabling of digital amendments on the IGM, automatic let export orders for units under ECCS. Several other initiatives were also announced during COVID. The electronic certificate of origin was always available digitally for non-preferential, but during COVID, the Director General Foreign Trade launched a platform where preferential trade agreements were also introduced in India. Other than the technology-related and the digital-related activities of the state, several other state actions were taken by the Indian government, offering free detentions, offering waiver of fees, offering waiver of taxes, allowing self-declaration for medical cargo, etc. What also happened, and what one needs to keep in mind, is the current situation has woken India up to see the entire global scenario as an opportunity for India to step in and provide itself, to volunteer itself as a viable backup for global trade. With all of this, there has been limited visible benefits. And what actually held it back, as we see it, was largely interoperability, standards. There is still a feeling that legal and regulatory frameworks need to be improved. And there is still, sadly, an attitude of suspicion to digital versus paper and people. At the bottom of my slide, you'd see the kind of opportunity that India is sitting on. We are about 17% of the world population and well under 5% of the trade. So this is the gap that we wish to bridge by actually embracing digitization and paperless trade. During the same time, what we saw with the logistics service providers and traders was quite interesting. Governments were more nimble than the private sector, and this was a topic of concern in most meetings with stakeholders, where particularly in nations like India, there was a feeling that governments do not move. But during this period, in times of trouble, we saw the government taking giant leaps and the private sector struggling to keep up. Why? We certainly saw that there was a fear of legal impact, there was a fear of the new, there was a complete lack of understanding as to what the value would be that would be derived. And sadly, the private sector seems to have less of an onus to actually reduce cost of logistics down the chain, more of a pass the cost on, bundle it up and pass it on, which is not the ideal way moving forward. However, large carriers, large players are investing in and backing solutions, largely blockchain solutions. This backward innovation is going to keep the elite the elite. And I think one of the things we need to do is also encourage, therefore, governments and public blockchain platforms and neutral platforms to be available in this space and to try and onboard the small and medium stakeholders. Interesting then is whether they'd be able to sustain, because there is a long leeway between the effort that is taken and the traction that it gains. From the private sector perspective, and going back to my first slide, really speaking, trade is a B2B, a business-to-business transaction. And in a B2B transaction, it really comes under commercial law, contract law, the overarching principle of contract law then being a freedom to contract. Therefore, as long as there is technology neutrality, parties are free to choose technology, method, or product. There's not much that we need to do to address via technology or legal framework where parties choose to go paperless. There are also several global platforms already in this space with adequate legal cover, working towards legal recognition, working towards legal interoperability. So why, from a private sector perspective, would we not be able to go paperless smoothly? That's because there's also the public side. Governments are more and more trying to set up electronic single windows, PCSs, and national logistics portals. These platforms would then cover regulatory functions that would come under customs law, for example, which is then a branch of public and administrative law. There are all B2G transactions, or business to government transactions, then come under the various ministries within the governments that are concerned. The role of banks and trade finance then comes under the Ministry of Finance. Commercial operators, therefore, are now asked to comply with data standards or timings or integrations with public platforms, which is where then there are mismatches, and lack of standardization leads to more cost, delays, and an unwillingness to adapt to single windows.
Could you please conclude, Meera?
I just have one more, thank you. What then are the drivers for change? The same drivers really that we spoke of in the first slide, the principle of non-discrimination, of functional equivalence, and of technology neutrality. And all these principles are well met already today with existing technology, with working solutions in plenty. What was our experience as a private company in this space? We saw during COVID a huge traction with the ports. We saw a huge traction with trade, with people demanding solutions and demanding digital. We did see the large players hesitating to adapt, not that they were not willing to step into the space, but because they wanted their personal investments before they would agree to go paperless. So this is one thing we noticed, and which is why we concluded that governments would then need to push if they were to get a certain speed towards paperless. We saw that ministries, particularly customs globally, came up with a lot of initiatives and a lot of groundbreaking actions were put into place. But again, we noticed that customs still is not big on interoperability. They're good with passing out information, but they still don't quite permit incoming submits to be made via other platforms. So these are a few ways we see as a private company and from the region of the world that we come from, things we could do together jointly to move and promote paperless trade. Firstly, the network of trusted networks, we're all talking about it, needs to happen faster. Secondly, this is really a space where we need activists, lobbyists even, in all stakeholder categories, for which we'll need governments to set up deadlines, targets to eliminate paper. We'll need journalists to nose out stories and to publish this so that more people read about what the benefits are in going paperless. We might even want to look at some unique risk coverage. Could we perhaps set up a fund to cover risks of early adopters? Maybe the fund could be set up by governments along with, say, UNCITRAL or World Bank backing perhaps SP. IGPNI, for example, has already stepped forward, approved a lot of global players for EBOL. Maybe insurance clubs and other parties need to follow suit. Putting all this on one side, companies like Amazon, Alibaba could perhaps be market leaders and decide to go completely paperless globally. This would then inculcate and encourage more companies to follow suit. Free trade agreements can then be brought forward into Green Line or Green Channel for trusted data sharing agreements between countries. So a few suggestions, I'm sure we'll hear a lot more, but basically what I'd like to say is paperless trade, the time really is now. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Meera. Now we move on to the next distinguished panelist, Ms. Valentina Ion, Director, Business Strategy, Microsoft Global. Valentina has more than 20 years experience in ICT and business transformation. She is passionate about business process reengineering and digital transformation for a better economy and society. As Director of Government Industry Solutions, Valentina supports customer design and execute the business transformation journey based on a deep understanding of their industry, drivers and critical lines of business processes. She is also in charge of building and developing strategic partnerships with ICT advisory, academia, international organizations such as the OECD, IATA, WCO, etc. And Valentina holds a master's degree in finance and accounting. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's have Ms. Valentina now make a presentation. Over to you, Valentina.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, SP. And hello, everyone. An honor to be part of this forum. I would like to share Microsoft experience when it comes to digitalization of customs and also share some of the insights for the recent pandemic period, the learnings we had from it. For sure, we're facing a global economic crisis that was derived from pandemic, and looking at the pandemic evolutions, we go back to the crisis phase before going back to recovery. And I think that we will have a fluctuation of going back and forth, unfortunately, which means we need to look at a different way of running our economies globally. Because supply chains have been impacted, and we've heard in which way, and we need it in the first phase to secure the healthcare and medical supply chains in order to safeguard the people around the globe. But then the digitalization surge with e-commerce, digital platforms, remote working, taking care of health and safety for the workers, for the customers and companies and citizens required specific measures to be taken into account. And all these digitalization efforts means also there's a need of skilling, of equipping people to use this technology and upskill, be able to gain productivity, be able to build on efficiencies, cost optimization, but also thinking of the well-being of each individual. The action plan, there are the three classic phases, I would say, that all of you are aware of: respond to crisis, recover with efficiency, and rebuild for the future. We have the chance now to think out of the box, to re-engineer some of the processes. And we heard a great presentation from Vortal earlier, thinking of what are the needs, what are the outcomes that we want. And maybe this means we have the chance to do things differently, to do it better. Answering the pandemic needs and the search for digital means anytime and anywhere access, collaboration, design, and delivery. So this is where we, as Microsoft, are looking to support across the process. And some examples, taking the different pandemic response phases one by one, are here presented to you. When responding to crisis, collaboration is key. Partnering with the healthcare system, partnering with customs organizations in Thailand, in US, to enable a seamless flow of the supply chain. It's something that we've done. We've developed low code in easy to deploy in a number of hours solutions like emergency and crisis applications platform. And the innovation and the solutions came in Thailand from the partnership with the startup and hospitals. So it can be distributed across the globe, and that's another benefit of digital platforms, because in the speed of innovation and access to innovation, it's key. Touchless, we've heard the importance of touchless, of leveraging sensors, leveraging artificial intelligence and mobile platforms to keep the safety and social distancing measures. And there are applications such as the next-gen notebook for customs officers. Safety, healthcare, monitoring of the respect of social distancing measures, in customs, in airports, on the ground, in ports, artificial intelligence, image recognitions, thermal cameras detection are enabling this. And this is actually defining the workplace. Workplace can be from home, like I'm doing it today, or can be in a hybrid model where some of the teams will be in an office and some across the globe. Rapid digitalization and secure digitalization was the key mandate. We needed to keep the always-on requirement for customs, for governments, for businesses. And that's one example you have from Kenya on Ports Authority Consignee platform, easy to deploy, self-service by design, which enables to scale, to expand as business required in a fast, easy way. So I would say it's the evolution of single Windows heavy deployment. Moving to the recover with efficiency part, this is where the big potential of data and AI will help us. Go deeper into touchless, smart image recognition, cargo screening. We've heard some examples also yesterday of these equipments. Microsoft AI, the custom vision platform enables it to do it, to recognize objects, to understand if smart seals have been tampered with, and to assess the right risk and the procedures to follow. Data marketplace and federated identity, where you back to Norbert's point on, do we really need customs forms? So the data exists. It can be in different formats. It can be following even different standards, but there is identification data. And if you can access it where it is, if you can then cleanse it, classify it, and extract insights with it, you will gain agility, and you will optimize on cost, and we will enable not only seamless customs operations, but trade port with an export data utility platform, going across different processes needed, different stakeholders, importer, exporters, insurance, port authority, customs authority, all together on this platform. And the innovation that's being now generated by all this ecosystem coming together, it's being exported. It resulted in a spin-off from Antwerp Port Authority, an ICT company that's now deploying this across virtual meetings, consultations. There's no need to go and meet in person. And what we do today is actually the perfect example. But this will also grow the capacity of customs to not only be an inspector and a facilitator of trade, but to also be an enabler of economy through consultations, coaching, advisory, new services. And artificial intelligence, machine learning mechanism to remotely monitor the activities happening. An example from a project we've done for EMSA, European Maritime Safety Agency, is here, but similarly, we've done it in Panama ports, and you'll see later on we're working on similar projects in Singapore. So when we go digital, when we leverage the power of data and AI and all other disruptive technology like blockchain and IoT, we are enabling innovation, which is the redesign of the economy. And one example, I think it's relevant for customs, it's breaking the language barrier. Trade, it's about different countries, different languages meeting in structure and structure formats. And the recent project we deployed with the European Parliament proves that artificial intelligence can enable real-life translation, transcription of interaction, which will speed up digitalization and insights extraction. AI and blockchain, we've heard on blockchain capabilities and possibilities that are open, and when you pair it up with AI, you not only are able to classify goods, but you're also able to properly evaluate the goods. You're not only able to track the origin of products, but you're also eliminating fraud because you're immutably putting all transaction between all stakeholders on a platform that cannot be tampered, cannot be overridden, cannot be modified. So fraud, it's eliminated, and automation can happen fully. Sustainability, it's an important angle in the redesign of the economy. We see also economic stimulus and investments are being now conditioned by the impact it would have in the society, and sustainability is one that measurement. Again, to Antwerp example, leveraging the data platform, connecting sensors, using drones to monitor the quality on environment and take the measures for that, to monitor a location of boats on a harbor and be able to run the licensing and permitting and charging accordingly, quality of water and eliminate pollution. It's another use case.
Valentina,
yeah, just the last example, and I'll finish. Innovation, leveraging digital twins, IoT, blockchain, AI, mixed reality will enable new business models, and autonomous ships. It's such an example, but it will also mean having command and control strong center for customs and ports authority around the globe. We're there to support across the journey. The learnings are there, and we are deeply honored to have partnered with many of the participants of today's conferences. We have been part of the project of Inter-American Development Bank, where in LATAM, blockchain has been tested and implemented. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. Thank you for your presentation. Now we have the final presentation for this panel by Mr. Solomon Raj. Mr. Solomon Raj is the product director of Crimson Logic, and the Crimson Logic company itself doesn't need any introduction. Based out of Singapore, it has supported many ICT solutions for customs around the world. Over to you, Solomon. Take it away from here.
Good morning. Thank you, SP. Good morning to all. over the next few minutes, I would like to share with you our experiences in easing total trade and achieving paperless trade for governments and businesses. Okay, let me share my slides. Give me a minute. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cross-border trade complexity is a key challenge to companies, especially the small and medium enterprises. The complexity is manifested across three aspects, namely trade, namely logistics, that is the expectation of more timely and reliable fulfillment, compliance, which is basically the complexity of trade formalities, and finance, that is maintaining a cash flow. We are seeing the global supply chain become more complex. COVID is just one of the disruptors. Even in like 2019, we already saw changes in the supply chain due to US-China trade war, Brexit, and so on. With COVID, we are seeing governments making changes to ensure trade flow, and the need for paperless trade is even more pressing now. Some countries have relaxed some measures, like they stopped requesting for original cert of origin. Some have exempted customs duties for essential items. Some minimized checks for low-risk items, and the list goes on. We believe there will be a lot more such adaptation going forward. On the business front, a survey conducted by Gartner between Feb and March this year showed that only 21% indicated that they have a highly resilient supply chain with good visibility and ability to quickly shift sourcing, manufacturing, and distribution activities. 55% of the surveyed plan to achieve these in the next 2 to 3 years in order to be able to better react to unforeseen circumstances like COVID-19. We at GETS believe that it is time for a new paradigm, a total trade platform that meets the changing requirements of both governments and businesses, and enabling G2G, government to government, government to business, and B2B levels. And this is what our total trade platform can provide you with. Plus custom nodes all over the region, all over the world, and we have access to trade advisory of over 180 countries, 90 plus carriers and NVOCCs, 50 plus ports. In terms of trade finance, we support cross-border payments in over 20 currencies, and our customers can access financing in 72 hours. In the face of growing regionalization and domestic agenda, G2G connectivity is increasingly becoming important for governments to ensure that their businesses remain plugged into the global economy. Today, this can be achieved through GETS Total Trade Platform. Our platform harnesses the power of AI, machine learning, and blockchain technologies, and our deep understanding of the compliance requirements based on our implementation experiences of over 25 single windows across the globe. We are able to extract structured and unstructured data, make sense out of it, aggregate it, and feed this necessary data to the various stakeholders in the ecosystem to make key decisions. Further, it also enables governments to exchange trade data or documents with multiple trading partner countries securely and smartly. One example to illustrate this exchange of data is through the exchange of health certs. For example, let's say there's a meat exports and you need a health certificate for meat exports. Concerned government agencies can then leverage on our Total Trade platform to exchange the certificate data securely and in the format that meets the different requirements. When exchanged, relevant data can then be used by customs of the importing country to validate the actual declaration documents like your invoices, packing list, etc. The data contained in the health cert can also be used to pre-populate import declarations. The gentleman from IBM also did mention about pre-filling information. So this is how you can achieve it. So in addition to digitalizing data reuse for the businesses, the platform also assists the businesses with choosing the appropriate HS tariff codes, reducing unnecessary compounds by making sure that the classification of goods is done properly. It avoids wrong filing by traders. Overall, this would help the business's productivity and data accuracy in preparing the necessary import declarations. I've just shared how the G2G data exchange can be made possible. We can also leverage AI to facilitate B2B and B2G data exchange. Let me share with you a short demo. We prepared a short demo using one of our AI components, which is part of our platform called DataTX, which is basically using the machine learning and the artificial intelligence to ease the filing of declarations for business. So here in the demo, you will see how data is extracted and pre-filled. The businesses would usually receive the documents in either invoices or through email. So they just need to drag and drop the email, the documents from the email into the DataTX. There's a document pouch. After a few seconds, the data in the 3 sets of documents will be processed. Okay, at the background, there will be machine learning, artificial intelligence to be able to extract the data. So what you see will be a summary of the data that is processed. So in this example, DataTX managed to fill about 152 data elements. So this example we are taking is a TradeWeb, which is the Singapore front end for filing declarations. So just by a few simple steps, about 70% of the data is filled. For large consignments with over, say, 50 items, this can be a saving of easily 10 to 15 man-hours and the equivalent cost. So now you can see a summary of the documents, the summary of how many data fields have been filled up. You see that there's 152 data elements filled up.
Solomon, could you please go towards the conclusion?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let me move on. So in addition to what you have seen, G2G connectivity can also be made more powerful when complemented with G2B and B2B services. In addition to promoting efficient trade flow and supply chain resilience, the multi-level connectivities across governments and businesses will strengthen risk management. So data along the supply chain provides a 360-degree and early risk assessment. So we have been able to use this and implement this in a few of our projects. And based on our implementation experience, customs can actually reduce physical inspections by up to 70% and improve the sensitivity of targeting by 3 times. Harnessing data that is in the upstream supply chain. So this means businesses can also clear their cargoes in a shorter time frame. Okay, then another important aspect of building a resilient supply chain is to ease the liquidity constraint faced by SMEs. Leveraging on AI and blockchain, as well as trade transactional data on our platform, we have digitalized loan applications, credit assessment, and disbursement. All this is done within 72 hours. In fact, in many cases, within 24 hours. We are also able to connect more financiers to the platform, as the platform provides them good visibility of the borrower's activities and that they are financing, movement of the funds, and access to growing network of borrowers globally. This allows us to offer fast and fuss-free financing to SMEs in the trade sector. So to conclude, GET's Total Trade platform can help strengthen the resilience of trade through multi-level G and B connectivities, seamless trade fulfillment capabilities, paperless trade, tighter trade security, and easy access to needed financing. Thank you.
Thank you, Solomon. Thank you for your presentation and thank you for concluding. Essentially, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have much time to go for a panel discussion, but very quickly, if I could have one concluding remark based on what you have heard from all of the panelists, and we could go ahead and conclude. But basically, what I heard was that there is interesting technologies that are in play, and it's great to see how governments and the private sector and technology solution providers are coming together to make digital paperless transactions happening. We are coming together to discuss and analyze all of that at this point where we know that we are at the threshold of getting into something very, very new and something very, very transformative. And what I hear is that data standards, technology standards, they are all very important. At the World Bank, actually, we work with multiple countries to support them in their endeavors for trade facilitation. And what I find happening is that some of the countries that have succeeded have taken the basic elements into account in order to implement some of the high-tech solutions. And these are ensuring ICT readiness to support remote work wherever feasible, taking advantage of remote working features of existing automated solutions, and to introduce new solutions at the comfort level that is good for the trade, and basically eliminating hard copy, which provides a testing ground for future implementation when COVID situation eases out, using simple things like telephone appointment management systems and scheduling and the requirement of physical presence so that there is no crowding in facilities, etc. Using distance communication methods, supporting inquiry points using SMS, and the Peruvian colleague mentioned about WhatsApp. So these are all very simple technologies that bring people together to do remote work and then basically adopt more advanced technologies. So if I could request some of the participants, if they have any final thoughts, we could take them beginning with Mileru, and then and from Peru, and then other colleagues could follow. Peru?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And I want to remark on answering a question about the new technology that we are using as blockchain. I want to remark that this initiative is a pilot, of course, and we have two phases. The first one is the participation with the private sector selected, but as IAO. But the second phase is integrate the information with the platform. The IT is a fundamental role because we need to integrate in our experience with the late change with the transactional system as custom. It's very important, integrate all. The technology, the IT is very useful for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mira?
Yeah, thank you, SB. I think it's been really educative for me to listen to everybody else, to the conscious choice not to speak technology, because I knew my panelists were all eminent technology experts. But I do think my parting comment still remains that moving paperless is about more than technology, and it's about getting people to change habits and to form trust to make this change. So I think that's a big one. Thank you.
Thank you. Norbert, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I echo the wordings of Mira. I do think there's a lot of technology still to be done on the, let's say, if we have this paradigm change where private and public sector work together, there is a lot of data, but it's not really as easy as it seems to get information from the data. But I really believe we are heading to a period where customs has full access to private sector data, does all their risk assessment monitoring in a completely different way than we are used today. So let's not pave the cow path, but embrace the opportunities we have ahead of us.
Thank you, Norbert. Valentina, what are your final thoughts?
I would say collaboration, skilling to get prepared, and foster for innovation. Think of the future. If we have this in mind, the sky is the limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina, for being brief. Solomon, your final thoughts?
Okay. I just want to reiterate that it's no longer compliance. Customs mandate is beyond regulatory compliance. With COVID, increasingly the focus was, previously the focus was only on import and import regulatory compliance. I think now customs need to look beyond and promote exports to plug their businesses into the global economy. So things like G2B, B2B, and B2G really becomes very important in this situation. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Solomon. And dear colleagues listening to this panel from all the customs administrations and from the private sector, here you have an array of possibilities and solutions. What has really been tried out successfully in many countries around the world. There are many lessons to draw from here, and starting from the basics to the adoption of new technologies and technology standards. And it's really interesting as to how things develop, and we would definitely hear more about these things in the future WCO IT conferences, hopefully face-to-face on the next occasion. That's all from this panel, and thank you very much, distinguished panelists, for providing insightful presentations and encouraging discussions amongst us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, SP, and thanks to all the speakers. The session provided valuable insights into electronic services and paperless trade. We will now move to a break with 2 videos provided by our Platinum sponsor, Crimson Logic, and by our Gold sponsor, TECH.
Hi, it's Chris Thibodeau from TTech. Wanted to give you a little bit of background about our firm. We're a leading global technology solutions company that specializes in developing and deploying technology for the optimization of customs and border processing. At TTech, we embrace artificial intelligence as the foundation of our technology to improve border virtualization, data exploitation, and decision support, all being designed to strengthen controls and promote trade facilitation to ultimately achieve economic prosperity for our global clients and their regional partners. So the foundational core of our technology is built upon the principles of ACI, or Advanced Commercial Information. And what do we mean when we say that? That just simply means you can get the right data at the right time to make more informed decisions at the border. And when you have the right data, you can improve your border virtualization. You can create a common operating picture. It improves your situational awareness and your domain awareness, and it improves your end-to-end supply chain visibility. So once you have the right data at the right time, what do you do with it? It's really important to identify fiscal and non-fiscal threats. So from a fiscal perspective, these would be threats such as undervaluation, misdescription, misclassification, and misdeclaration of origin, anything that would result in an attempt to evade revenue owed at the border. From a non-fiscal perspective, this is generally an area where the threats are related to health, safety, and security. So these would be threats such as illegal weapons and ammunition, narcotics, chemical weapons precursors, dual-use goods, even endangered species, anything that's non-revenue focused that could cause damage to your sovereign interests. So if you're a customs administration that agrees that risk management is the guiding principle for border management, then you're looking at the best in breed technologies. This is the best of the best. The technology that we're showing you here today is designed to improve your virtualization and visibility into goods, people, and conveyances that will be crossing your borders, and help your organization identify key threats, whether they are fiscal or non-fiscal in nature, well in advance of arrival, in order to position your resources and your tools and your scanner equipment and other detection technologies to help you interdict and negate those potential threats that are going to be arriving at your border and will cause damage to your sovereign interests. So at TTech, we focus on building our technologies in three key verticals. One is obviously the customs risk management area, of which we believe we are best in breed. The second is an electronic single window. As you can see with our customs risk management technologies, we also can deploy this technology as an integrated risk management system for customs and other government agencies to improve and strengthen border collaboration and border coordination, specifically for controlled and regulated goods at the border, where there are other government agencies that have a mandate in border processing for those particular goods. And as part of that electronic single window platform, it uses an AI-based tariff. So this is a tariff engine that's using artificial intelligence to strengthen and provide a more accurate HS code for the commodity that's being imported. If it is controlled or regulated, the system will automatically prompt the appropriate license, permit, certificate, or other control document that's required under the mandate of that other government agency. And once that OGA approves that license, permit, or certificate for the controlled or regulated goods under their legislation or mandate, the system, the electronic single window system that we've built, automatically syncs that approval with the declaration on file so that customs can then account for the duties and taxes owed, recognize that the OGA has approved the license, permit, certificate, or other control document, and then release or clear those goods to enter into the economy for consumption. The ultimate goal here is to reduce trade release times at the border, and the electronic single window system that's been designed by TTech offers these benefits to our clients. Please go to ttechglobal.com to learn more.
Welcome back, dear participants. Before moving on, I would also like to inform you that the sessions from yesterday are already available on Event Mobi. The pre-recorded video breaks and video addresses are under the respective agenda items, while the whole day's recording you will find by selecting Past Sessions option under the menu. We now continue with the topic of electronic services and paperless trade with a set of new speakers, and again in the one-on-one format as we had yesterday. And now please welcome Mr. Gordon Wright, Head of Cargo Border Management at the International Air Transport Association. He will be moderating these 4 short sessions. In his role in IATA, Gordon is responsible for cargo security, customs, and trade facilitation. Prior to this role, Gordon had a 28-year career as a regulator in customs, working on all aspects of enforcement activity in the UK and South Africa. He was also responsible for the EU-US customs security programs and aviation security, whilst on secondment to the EU Commission in DG TechSud. We are very pleased to have him here with us today. Gordon, you have the floor. If we can ask the operator to add him to the screen. Excellent. Thank you so much. I hand it over to you, Gordon.
Good afternoon, good morning, good day, everyone. Thank you, Milena. Thank you to the WCO for inviting me to moderate this particular session, which follows on quite nicely from SP's earlier session. Today, on the next session, we will be talking about new technology solutions and lessons learned during the course of the COVID pandemic. We've got 4 interesting speakers for you today. And in the interest of time, because I know that we are running behind somewhat, I will move forward and invite the first speaker, bearing in mind that the bio is already on the WCO's webpage for this particular conference. So apologies for the speakers for doing that, but in the interest of time, I think we need to progress. So could I please invite as our first speaker, Mr. Charles Sakaboku, who's the Director General of Benin Customs. So Mr. Sakaboku, can you please join me? Are you there, Mr. Sakaboku? Okay, we may have a connectivity problem then. So what I will do, I will proceed to the next eminent speaker that we have this afternoon, with the hope that we can return to Mr. Sakaboku towards the end of this particular session. So if I could move then to the second speaker that we have today, Ms. Mar Lopez, who's the Commercial Director for Valencia Port in Spain. Ms. Lopez, are you out there? Can I please invite you to this session?
Yes, hello.
There we go.
We got it. Good morning, everyone, or good day, or whatever the timing is, because nowadays with this all day just making webinars, everyone lose even the time. First of all, I would like to thank the organization of the World Capstone organization to give us the chance as Valencia Port to present how we have proceeded with paperless solutions through many years ago, and especially during this COVID time, because prior to COVID, we already have developed a port community system that support us a lot in implementing paperless solution for our port community. But which is clear is that this COVID just forced us to develop more things. And also, I think that the good point about this pandemic is that everyone was able to internalize the importance of going digital, because I guess that probably some years ago we were thinking, okay, going digital is there, is an option, but I guess that nowadays everyone feels that going digital is just a necessity. So I will try to share a short presentation where I try to explain how we did this in the port. I don't know if you may see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay, I will be going very, very fast because I know we are running out of time. And well, this is a small view of our port. The Port of Valencia manages 3 ports, Sagunto, Valencia, and Gandia. Of course, the main port is Valencia. We are very well known because of containers. We are main container port in Spain and the 4th, 5th in Europe on the year. And there we have 3 container terminals, 2 ro-ro terminals, and also passengers terminal, which are our main traffic. Sagunto is a small port compared to Valencia, of course, but also very important for vehicles and general cargo. And Gandia is a very, very small port just devoted to local traffic. To handle all this and all these facilities, it is clear that some paperless solution has to be implemented because also around Valencia is 55% of the Spanish GDP. So due to our good geographical position and to our good connectivity, we can serve 60% of the whole import-export commerce of the whole Spain. So we are a gate hub port for the Med, where big vessels arrive and we distribute to the other Mediterranean ports and also North Africa. But also it's important the hinterland connectivity, not only by road, but also by rail. We are trying to implement much more rail services. And to do that, what we came to the conclusion is that it's not only important the infrastructure, which is the civil works that we perform in all our ports and also in our rail tracks, but also infrastructure, because we think that sharing data strengthens the cooperations for international port chains. And this is how we got it. At the very, very beginning, we start to develop as an isolated port just and edit connections with our port users, with our shippers. That was the very beginning. Later, we start to build. That was the third step. A port community, where we have just getting connected and other parts such as the customs and so on. And now we are in the 4th step where we have everyone connected. We are trying to connect even our end clients, and also we are connected to trade lanes, ESBN. Now we are talking with DCSA also to connect, because we think that we are living in a connected world, and we not have to see only to our port community, but also to the whole world. And exchanging data is every day more important. If we concentrate as how we work nowadays in our port community system, in this image, I think you can see quite clear what's the feeling of this port community system. It's our e-commerce platform where we have connected more than 850 companies, and with one click, all the info goes to the all involved parts. So it's one-stop point, as I always say, to everyone that wants to make business through the Port of Valencia. So the time the vessel arrives, we have the info automatically, and that info is already transmitted in real time to customers and to all administrations involved. So that's really, really important and good. And we are always developing new applications, very client-oriented, to facilitate things to our clients, to other administrations involved. A good proof of the efficiency of the platform is that probably the number of transactions that we handle. Just to make you an idea, in 1929, last year, we handled 71 million messages. I think that is a good figure of the importance of this platform. And this year, even the figure was even higher, because as I mentioned before, because as I mentioned before, sharing data and going digital and making everything really quick and on real time is something that is just a need. And that's my message from Valencia. I keep at your full disposal for anything you may require from our side. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lopez. If I could maybe just ask you one question, actually. You've spoken very much about the work that the Port of Valencia has done regarding adapting to the pandemic and accelerating your electronic solutions, your digitalization. I'm interested to know what more could authorities do to support ports given Valencia's experience?
Here in Spain, all the let's say all things regarding customs is through a single window, a Spanish single window, and also the port calls are also transmitted to our port community systems through a Spanish single window. So I guess that Spanish administration has applied that principle many years ago of going digital. And even there is legislation that is appearing every day, just forcing electronic documents for all the administration in Spain. So I think that is something that we have very much in our veins nowadays.
Okay, thank you very much. And last question to you. Looking towards the future, maybe, what technologies do you see as key to the future of digital projects?
Well, at this very moment, our aim is to launch a tender to move to the cloud, because nowadays we have everything in our own servers, but we think that due to cybersecurity and things like that, we think that the cloud is even safer. But I think that the blockchain, once everything is clear from the regulatory point of view and the governance point of view, will be probably a good chance for administrations. We have been making some trials through several European projects with that technology, and it was working very well. And of course, we keep an eye wide open on that technology, because we think that it would be a good option for the future. But our first step probably will be going first to the cloud than to the blockchain technology. That will be the second one.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Lopez, for joining us today. Very much appreciated your input. I'd like to take the opportunity to invite Ms. Gordina Vidanovic, who's the Councillor for Customs at the Mission of the Republic of Serbia to the European Union. So, Gordana, we'll start with you then. So the first question I have for you relates to the response of the Customs Administration of Serbia to the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you tell us how they've reacted, what steps they've put in place to respond to this particular challenge?
Oui, Gordon, mais tout d'abord, je voudrais vous dire bonjour et je vous dire que je suis très contente d'être présente ici à cette conférence. Même si on se réunit virtuellement, malheureusement, à cause du Covid. Et je voudrais nous rappeler l'un des slogans de l'OMD qui disait « Les frontières divisent, les douanes rapprochent ». Je crois qu'aujourd'hui, on peut le reformuler et on pourrait dire « Le Covid divise, mais les douanes et les technologies nous rapprochent ». Alors, pour répondre à votre question, je dois dire que la République de Serbie a réagi très vite. Et déjà le 15 mars, on avait déclaré l'état d'urgence en raison de la pandémie du Covid. Et c'est à ce moment-là que le gouvernement a adopté une approche proactive afin de réagir et de pouvoir minimiser l'impact négatif que pourrait avoir le Covid. Donc, on a pris certaines mesures. L'une de ces mesures, c'était une mesure afin de soutenir l'économie et d'assurer la continuité de la chaîne d'approvisionnement. On a eu d'autres mesures qui visaient à assurer la protection de la société. Et ensuite, on a eu aussi des mesures pour la protection du personnel administratif, dont par exemple le personnel douanier. Mais dans le contexte dans lequel on se trouve aujourd'hui, je crois que le plus important, c'est de mentionner la mesure qui visait à faciliter le mouvement transfrontalier des envois de secours et des fournitures essentielles. En fait, l'idée, c'était d'accélérer la livraison des biens essentiels. Alors, étant donné qu'on était face à un ennemi invisible, à un ennemi imprévisible, on a très vite décidé de prendre une approche régionale. Et pour ceci, on a constitué un corridor vert, un corridor douanier dans la région des Balkans occidentaux afin de pouvoir faciliter le mouvement transfrontalier entre les membres de l'ALECE. L'ALECE, c'est l'accord de libre-échange au centre européen. En anglais, c'est CEFTA. Donc, ce qu'on a fait, c'est qu'on a défini des postes spécifiques pour assurer la circulation de toutes les marchandises, mais en accordant la priorité aux marchandises essentielles. Et pour la liste des marchandises essentielles, je voudrais remercier l'OMD. On s'est servi de la liste de fournitures médicales et des médicaments liés au Covid-19 qui a été faite par l'OMD. Et à cette liste, en fait, on a rajouté les marchandises essentielles qui étaient convenues parmi les partenaires de l'ALECE. Donc, ce qu'il faut dire, c'est que bien sûr, au fur et à mesure, on faisait des changements à cette liste dès qu'on se rendait compte qu'une marchandise n'était pas à caractère essentiel ou on en avait une qui devait passer à caractère essentiel. Donc, tout le temps, il y avait des modifications de ces listes et la liste des marchandises essentielles ainsi que les listes qui concernaient les postes frontaliers qui étaient ouverts 24 sur 24, 7 jours sur 7 sont postés sur les sites des douanes. Alors, bien sûr, donc on avait une très belle idée, mais cette idée, elle avait besoin d'un support informatique. Donc, le passage des véhicules transportant des marchandises essentielles a été assuré en fournissant des informations des marchandises essentielles, mais avant l'arrivée, et ceci grâce à un système informatique SID. Alors, SID, c'est un système informatique, ça veut dire Systematic Exchange of Electronic Data, et on l'utilise depuis très longtemps. Il y a des années qu'on l'utilise dans la région des Balkans. Mais cette fois-ci, on a demandé aux prestataires de services, c'est-à-dire à l'entreprise qui l'a développé, de faire des modifications afin d'annoncer l'arrivée préalable des marchandises essentielles. Alors, comment est-ce qu'ils ont procédé? Ce qu'ils ont fait, étant donné qu'ils avaient une liste bien définie, ils se sont servis du code tarifaire de ces marchandises qui est inscrit dans les déclarations d'exportation et de transit. Et ce qui se passait, c'est que dès qu'il y avait une marchandise de cette liste qui apparaissait dans le système informatique, le système SID, il déclenchait tout de suite une alarme qui était visible aux douaniers. Et donc, ils pouvaient réagir afin de prendre toutes les mesures nécessaires pour que ces marchandises aient un passage prioritaire arrivant à la frontière. Ce qui serait peut-être important de mentionner, c'est qu'il y a quelque chose de révolutionnaire qui s'est passé là, c'est qu'on a réussi à intégrer les autres agences frontalières qui sont impliquées, comme les agences phytosanitaires et sanitaires, et de façon qu'en même temps que le système déclenche une alarme qui va vers les douaniers à la frontière, en même temps, on a une alarme qui est déclenchée et qui va vers les agences qui se trouvent à la frontière. Alors, étant donné qu'on n'avait pas un temps illimité pour développer ces fonctionnalités, on devait réagir très vite et malheureusement, c'est fait d'une manière que, en fait, les agences à la frontière, elles reçoivent simplement un email, mais elles reçoivent un email avec toutes les données nécessaires afin qu'ils puissent se préparer pour réagir très vite. Donc, pour vous expliquer comment ça se passe, alors, par exemple, on a une marchandise qui part de Skopje, qui est, par exemple, qui est la capitale de la Macédoine du Nord. La marchandise doit aller vers la Serbie, à Belgrade. Donc, au moment où la déclaration d'exportation est entrée dans le système informatique, à ce même moment, les douaniers à la frontière, ils reçoivent une alarme. Cette alarme se manifeste de façon que dans le système informatique, les marchandises et toutes les données qui concernent les marchandises essentielles prennent une autre couleur, donc elles deviennent vertes, et donc c'est très visible qu'il y a quelque chose qui arrive. En même temps, donc, comme j'avais dit, il y a l'email qui va vers les autres agences, et donc les agences à la frontière et les douaniers qui sont au poste frontalier doivent s'assurer que les marchandises vont avoir un passage prioritaire pour arriver à leur but. C'est à peu près en très court ce qu'on a fait pour minimiser l'impact de cette pandémie.
Indulge me that unfortunately we do not have time on our side. So can I thank you for your contribution? And we shall now move to the next speaker. I'll come back to Sergio Alacar from the who's the Customs Cooperation Coordinator at the Special Secretariat of the Federal Revenue in Brazil. Sergio, there you are at last, we have you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you, Gordon.
Okay, so Sergio, without any further delay, we could jump straight into it. Data standards are critical for electronic services and paperless trade. You have chaired the data model project team, so you're well positioned to tell us more about the role of the WCO data model in particular. How do you see the future of the data model? And how important is it for the context of blockchain technology?
Okay, Gordon. Look, one of the main trade facilitation initiatives today is the risk management using electronic data. Risk management minimizes the intervention of government agents in the import and export process without reducing control or security. So, and other intervening agencies have two ways of receiving information regarding cargo and negotiation and goods. Directly from the logistic operators, importers and exporters, that is the B2G, or from other intervening bodies in the country itself, this is the internal G2G, or for the country from which the cargo originates, okay? This is the external G2G. In both situations, B2G or D2G, the standardization of data is essential to speed up the process. That's where the WCO data model comes in. It is the most suitable standard to use in the forms of cross-border trade because it's designed by customs in partnership with the private sector. This is what we do in the DMPT, the Data Model Projects team in WCO. The use of the WCO data model is the only viable way to build multilateral information exchange systems. I'm talking here about exchange information between multilateral countries, not only bilateral relationships. And in my experience in building a single window and also in dealing with information exchange agreements, I'm fully convinced that the use of WCO data model is essential. So I see with great optimism the large scale with the standard message that contains the large scale implementation of the data model. The data model provides us with the standard message that contains the information we want to exchange. But the means of making that exchange must also change. Replace current forms with cheaper, simpler, and more secure technology. This is fully supported by distributed ledger technology or blockchain.
That leads quite nicely into another question, really. Blockchain is certainly the hit for today, and it's seen as a solution provider for the future. Obviously, it's not the only one. I mean, looking into the future in respect to your own administration, what technological projects do you currently foresee going forward?
Well, look, the most interesting and disruptive project that we are working on at the moment involves the exchange of information between countries using blockchain technology. We call this the BConnect. It's an initiative. Initially, this project involves the four Mercosur countries, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. And the BConnect network is already on the air. And the registration data of the AO certificate companies is currently travel on it. The message is entirely based on the WCO data model and uses the data package derived from AO master data. In addition to which the TIN trade identification number recommended by WCO is incorporated in this message. The format of the traffic message is JSON. Is a lighter format of message, and the BConnect use the Hyperledger Fabric tool, which is very widespread among permissioned type networks along the world. We have some challenges ahead of us. Look, providing other countries that proving to other countries that the network is secure and gaining more fans, more countries join to the network. And verifying the security of information guards so that we will use the network for exchange of declarations and traffic events as well, which are more sensitive information than the registration of AEOs. And lastly, build interoperability between existing blockchain networks using formats other than the Hyperledger Fabric. Look, Gordon, our challenge here is to make different blockchains with different type of blockchains like Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Bezel, Quorum, Corda, to talk these different networks. Early this morning, we heard about the Cadena. That is a similar approach of how to interchange information from AEO companies, from country to country. And Mercosur is working in agreement with the Pacific Alliance to exchange information. So the question is how BConnect will talk with Cadena, because Cadena is using Fabric Bezel, and BConnect is using Cadena is using Hyperledger Bezel, and BConnect is using Hyperledger Fabric. So this is a big challenge to make these two networks to talk.
Thank you, Sergio. And lastly, a very brief response, if I may, for the interest of time. Again, my apologies. Can you provide us maybe one example how Brazil Customs has reacted to the pandemic in terms of providing additional electronic services?
Yeah, look, Gordon, the pandemic has affected us very hard in Brazil. A high number of cases and deaths, unfortunately. And in customs in particular, we have a technical team where most of them are over 50 and some over 60. And although Brazilian customs is already highly digitalized, we have further increased the use of digital documents during the pandemic. The government issued an act specifying the format in which scanned documents would be accepted as replacements for the original without the need of later submission of these originals. So virtually all the work of documented customs checking and post-dispatch audit started to be carried out by servants from their homes. So 80% of our team is working home, and we are receiving these documents by internet. So regarding the visual physical inspection of goods, there is a very interesting routine called confere, or in English, check, that was implemented, in which the depositary himself operates a video camera and transmits the image over the internet at the same time to the cargo owner and to the inspector, or not only for customs, but for the agriculture or the healthy people, and without neither needs to be physical in place. So this process is used by both customs and other agents.
Thank you. A very good example and very progressive, I must say. Sergio, thank you very much for your content and your wise words today. Thank you very much. And so we will move now to our final, who was our first speaker indeed. If I could invite Mr. Sakaboko to join us for our last series of questions. Can you hear us?
Bonjour, cher modérateur.
On us at last, we've had some challenges with the technology, as you've just heard. So without any further delay, with time not on our side, sir, if I could just proceed to the first question. During the pandemic, Benin has reacted quickly in order to address the challenges faced in supporting cross-border movements and has accelerated the introduction of electronic payment. Can you tell us more about that experience?
Je voudrais remercier l'ensemble des panélistes et particulièrement le modérateur et présenter encore les excuses parce que les dieux de la technologie n'étaient pas juste à côté. Et cela étant, je voudrais rapidement, comme vous l'avez demandé, partager donc l'expérience du Bénin qui est partie déjà de l'ensemble des éléments constitutifs de la douane du 21e siècle que nous avons mis à l'avant donc de notre programme ici et qui nous a amené à avoir un certain nombre de contrats avec nos partenaires techniques, notamment Webfontaine Bénin Control. Et je rappelle au passage que Webfontaine, depuis un certain temps, nous appuyait déjà sur les outils informatiques, sur les réformes informatiques, ce qui nous a permis dans un premier temps de sécuriser un certain nombre de choses, et notamment la liquidation des déclarations. Et nous étions en train de mettre en place donc notre guichet unique qui intégrait un certain nombre de départements et voire donc le paiement électronique. Il faut dire, auparavant, il n'était pas rare d'aller dans une banque et voir 100 personnes ou plus de 100 qui sont en queue à l'attente donc du paiement de leur déclaration. Je rappelle au passage que le Bénin, c'est vrai, c'est un petit pays, mais c'est un pays de transit qui dessert l'ensemble des pays de l'Interland, le Niger, le Burkina Faso et même certains pays côtiers tels que le Nigeria et le Togo. Et tel que l'ont rappelé certains panélistes, notamment le collègue de la Serbie et donc le collègue de l'Espagne, nous-mêmes, nous mettons en place un ensemble de dispositifs pour que notre port soit un port performant, surtout dans un environnement où la concurrence est rude. Donc, avec la pandémie de Covid-19, pour me résumer, on a dû accélérer le e-payment et du coup, les opérateurs ont la possibilité de leur maison de donner des instructions pour que effectivement le paiement soit réalisé, pour que leur BFU soit OK. Cela nous a permis non seulement de faciliter le paiement de ces marchandises, mais aussi d'éviter les attroupements qu'on pouvait constater au niveau des banques. Il faut dire, on est même allé au-delà. Aujourd'hui, dans notre environnement, grâce au soutien de Webfontaine, nous avons la possibilité par les simples portables, avec l'accompagnement aussi des réseaux mobiles, d'effectuer les paiements, ce qui nous a permis d'accroître énormément notre capacité d'enlèvement des marchandises au port de Cotonou et aussi à l'aéroport international de Cotonou. Donc, voilà ce que j'allais dire. Et je voudrais continuer, si vous permettez, en évoquant aussi les préoccupations relatives à la deuxième question, qui était comment les plans de notre administration, on peut donc changer en termes de hiérarchie éthique. Je l'ai dit tantôt. Voyez-vous, nous avons la chance. Et je suis toujours heureux lorsque je prends la parole devant mes collègues de l'Organisation mondiale des douanes, de me sentir à cette organisation qui fait beaucoup et qui met beaucoup d'outils à la disposition de ses membres. Je rappelle au passage l'ensemble des éléments constitutifs d'une douane du 21e siècle. Vous ne pouvez pas imaginer comment ces outils ont pu nous aider. La CKR, l'enlèvement des marchandises au port et à l'aéroport liés à la COVID-19, tel que l'on dit, nous avons listé les positions tarifaires concernées et une fois, lorsque ces marchandises viennent, nous avons mis en place donc les instruments de la CKR pour accorder un enlèvement direct. Nous avons créé pour cette occasion des sommiers où, après un mois, on se retrouve rapidement pour faire le point et donc faire la régularisation. La gestion coordonnée des frontières dans un environnement où les déplacements sont évités. Et vous convenez avec moi que lorsque on n'a pas une gestion, lorsque nos systèmes informatiques ne se parlent pas entre eux, il aurait pu avoir un blocage. Et c'est le lieu de rappeler donc que, en sus de ce que nos frontières entre le Niger et le Nigeria étaient déjà interconnectées et qu'il y avait une gestion coordonnée des frontières, la pandémie donc de Covid nous a amené à réaliser cet exploit avec le Burkina et le Togo. Et du coup, les échanges de données sont tellement de sorte qu'aujourd'hui, lorsqu'il y a des cas d'irrégularité au niveau des transits, les systèmes qui se parlent nous permettent donc très rapidement d'identifier ceux-là qui ne veulent pas parfois comprendre la réglementation et ça nous permet donc d'avancer. Donc voilà rapidement ce que je puisse dire par rapport à l'expérience du Bénin. Et je voudrais rappeler que ces expériences qui ont facilité donc l'enlèvement des marchandises, appuyé donc d'un certain nombre de réformes mises en œuvre par rapport au contrôle, nous a permis d'aller au-delà même des prévisions que nous avons pu avoir par rapport aux prévisions révisées. Et pendant que le Fonds monétaire estimait qu'on pouvait avoir un maximum de 60% pour les prévisions initiales, nous sommes allés à de 75%, soit donc une réalisation de 102% pour les taux révisés. Je pense que c'est un exploit et je voudrais rappeler que la facilitation ne devait pas en réalité amener à une perte de recettes, mais plutôt effectivement, comme le dit les enseignements, l'ensemble donc des tests de notre structure frontière, elle devait permettre non seulement de faciliter le commerce, comme l'un des panélistes l'a présenté, et aussi d'améliorer nos recettes tout en créant un environnement assez apaisé et facile pour le commerce international.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive response, Director General. One last question for you. Taking into account all of your experiences during the pandemic and so on, has your administration changed its plans in terms of prioritizing ICT programs?
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais dire changer, non, mais plutôt accélérer. Accélérer parce que le programme informatique de notre administration reposait, comme je l'ai évoqué, sur l'ensemble des points constitutifs d'une douane du 21e siècle, notamment l'informatisation. Et je rappelle au passage que toutes les unités douanières ont été informatisées et celles qui n'étaient pas à Sidonia World, on a tout fait pour que, dans ce temps de Covid, que toutes ces unités soient migré au Sidonia World, ce qui permet, de ma position aujourd'hui de directeur général des douanes et droits indirects, d'avoir une vue globale sur l'ensemble des unités parce que juste à travers un clic, j'ai la possibilité de voir quelles sont les déclarations qui n'ont pas été bien liquidées et autres. Et je rappelle au passage que cette informatisation nous a permis aussi de réaliser des contrôles de cohérence entre les documents, notamment les factures, les attestations de vérification documentaire et les déclarations qui sont éditées et ça nous permet donc d'avoir une vue plus large dans l'ensemble des opérations de notre pays. Et je rappelle aussi au passage que cette informatisation a amené à la création d'un guichet unique. Et vous savez, lorsque nous parlons de la création d'un guichet unique, cela suppose que l'ensemble des opérations sont donc uniformisées au niveau d'un serveur tel que l'a présenté tout à l'heure le collègue de l'Espagne au niveau du port de Valence, ce qui permet non seulement d'éviter le contact, puisque nous savons dans notre environnement que le contact crée non seulement la corruption, mais aussi des pertes de temps. Donc, je voudrais dire en résumé que la pandémie de Covid nous a amené à accélérer nos réformes et à mettre en place donc l'ensemble des éléments constitutifs d'une douane moderne du 21e siècle.
Thank you very much, Director General. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time, but before I go back to the WCO, first and foremost, I'd like to thank our four speakers, Charles, Mar Sergio, and Gordana, for your contribution today. I'm very grateful to all of you. There's some themes that have come out through this particular session, and that is that your experience from all four speakers is that the COVID-19 pandemic had an unexpected, probably, impact in that it often accelerated e-solutions, blockchains, and so on. But there is the need going forward to ensure that there is supporting legislation around those changes that are taking place. We heard specifically about some of the work that was done at borders, particularly during the early stages, in order to e-solutions, in order to ensure that goods remain flowing through those. We also talked about the importance of the WCO and the instruments that are there, in particular the use of the WCO's data model, and uniquely how that's developed in partnership with the private sector. We talked about the importance of coordinated border management, not only with other administrations, but amongst the agencies in the times that we're living in today. And the importance of facilitation as well, and how that doesn't actually hinder controls and compliance. In fact, it can have the opposite effect. Most of the speakers have talked about the acceleration, actually, and that's probably the main feature from this particular session, that's accelerated the actual implementation of e-solutions. And I think that's to be welcomed, and hopefully they'll be sustained. So thanks again to my speakers, and I'll give the floor back to you, Milena.
Thank you so much, Gordon, and thanks to all the speakers. And thanks, Gordon, for those fantastic concluding remarks. Despite some challenges, we were finally able to hear from all the speakers who were able to take the floor and to present. So big thanks to them and to our technical support, and as well to you, Gordon, for your patience in this. We are running a little bit late, so let's now quickly move to our video break provided by our silver sponsor, Rigaku.
Hello, my name is Jen Lynch. I am the marketing director at Rigaku Analytical Devices based in Massachusetts in the US. The Rigaku portfolio of handheld analyzers can provide your agency with a unique solution for material analysis needs. Here's how. We know that keeping up with the constant flow of suspicious shipments, including narcotics and precursor materials being trafficked, is becoming an increasing challenge for customs and border protection agencies globally. Today, these suspect samples must be sent to law enforcement laboratories to be analyzed, which can be a lengthy process that causes delays. Increasing the speed and breadth of your on-the-spot identification capabilities versus having to send materials to a lab will allow you to process shipments and passengers faster, thus improving the speed of safe commerce, a priority for most governments. Let's add a new level of concern, the increased controls resulting from the implementation of measures to fight the spread of COVID-19. This has changed the ways criminal groups produce, traffic, and sell illegal drugs and chemical threats. It is important now more than ever that your agency has the necessary tools in place to most effectively protect borders. The Rigaku Rescue Sequel 1064 handheld Raman analyzer provides threat identification in the field. Having this capability is no longer a nice to have. It can be considered critical. The ability to determine dangerous versus non-dangerous at the point of need can save lives, time, and money. Rigaku is not new to the challenges you face within your customs organization. In 2018, we participated in Project Global Shield, a World Customs Organization program. The Rigaku analyzers were chosen to be used in global operations to identify and analyze chemical products used in manufacturing IEDs. Beyond that, we have thousands of units installed globally among other safety and security agencies, which has allowed us to capture the true needs of the industry. Our analyzers have unique features, really putting us in place as the pioneer in handheld 1064 Raman technology. Please enjoy this quick overview video.
Threats can be anywhere, anytime, hidden or out in the open. With new compounds being synthesized daily, Rigaku Rescue Sequel handheld 1064 nanometer Raman analyzer sees through threats clearly in seconds. through glass, plastic, translucent packaging, even colored materials, illicit drugs, cutting agents, explosives, precursors, hazardous chemicals, steroids, and more. 1064 nanometer longer wavelength excitation laser identifies thousands of substances with reduced fluorescence interference, and that's powerful. Produce more accurate spectra even for mixtures or in trace amounts. Recognize threat levels immediately, including precursor warnings using 4C technology. Dip it. Drop it. Customize and transfer it. Rescue Sequel. The power of 1064. Rigaku.
Please visit rigakuanalytical.com for more information. Thank you.
We come to the Find the Contraband game that we played yesterday. For those of you who are joining us only today, the game is played under the Activity Feed tab on the EventMobi platform. Before moving to the Activity Feed, stay with me so that you hear the instructions, because moving to the Activity tab will disconnect you from the live feed. So my colleague Scott will post in the Activity Feed an X-ray image on which there is some anomaly or hidden contraband. You need to find the anomaly or hidden contraband, but you cannot manipulate the image that will be posted. You can't circle the place where you think the contraband is hidden. What you need to do is write your answer, describe what you see and where on the image. For this, you will have 90 seconds, and the first correct answer will win the daily prize, which is a third scan branded Beats headphones provided by our corporate sponsor. The rules of the game were sent by email on Tuesday and were posted yesterday in the Activity Feed, and they are still there for you to consult. So now, those who want to play, please move to the Activity Feed where my colleague Scott will post the image for today. Okay, very well done. The winner will be announced at the end of today's session. Now we start with a new topic, which is the topic of e-commerce. And I would like to introduce our moderator for the next session, Ms. Marianne Roden, who is the President and CEO of the American Association of Exporters and Importers. Ms. Roden is a valued member of the WCO Private Sector Consultative Group, and she served for 3 years as the private sector co-chairperson of the WCO Working Group on E-commerce, which developed the WCO framework of standards on cross-border e-commerce. Marianne, you have the floor. Yes, perfect.
Thank you so much for the WCO having this conference and this panel. And I will share some slides to set up my panel, and then we will invite the other panelists to come on the screen. So let me share our screen. And this is an exciting time for us to be in the international trade field. My 3 panel speakers are Mr. Noor Aden, Mr. Dietmar Eerst of Global Express Association, Mr. Mike Leahy of CBSA. Before COVID-19, we were experiencing a change with trade volumes. Since 2008, global trade volumes were flat, but e-commerce was growing 20% per year. And that's when we found ourselves at the WCO work group on e-commerce. We were looking at cross-border shipments of physical goods, low value, B2C and C2C. Obviously, digital trade was being handled separately. My association, the American Association of Exporters and Importers, did a survey of its members, large multinational companies trading all around the world, over a 3-week period. And we found that every company was affected by the shutdown. At the time, obviously, we did not know how long this was going to continue, and that there were a myriad of impacts over those 3 weeks. And you can see those gray bars rising for each. We also found that the impact was felt immediately, and that American companies in particular were taking some more drastic measures to deal with the crisis. Here are some WTO statistics to show the impact on the global trade in services and what the global trade projections are through 2022. And so this shows you the big impact that an imposed lockdown has. And here is where I want to leave before we introduce our speakers to give their presentations. And we have a saying, who's driving the bus in the United States? And we wonder if e-commerce is now driving the bus, because we in the United States have found that e-commerce shipments are more than type 1 consumption entries. We also know that if we didn't have the e-commerce supply chain, it would have been very difficult for people to get consumer supplies or groceries. And it really was able to sustain itself in this difficult environment. The problem that we see now, at least in the United States, is we have 2 different trading systems. We have rules for formal entries, and then we have a different system of informal entries or de minimis shipments. And the current administration is trying to end those exemptions, that simplified process. And again, don't forget that e-commerce is an export platform for most countries. And what's unique about this crisis is we saw the imposition of more import and export restrictions imposed by countries. So with that, I want to call in my colleagues, and I would first like to ask Mr. Noor Aydin of the UPU to give his presentation, come on the screen and share his screen for his presentation.
Hello, can you see me?
Yes, Mr. Aydin, yes, thank you.
And I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Marine, and thanks to WCO for this organization of this conference and for inviting the UPU to this panel discussion. And in advance, I want to say I'm very pleased to see both Mike and Detmar, very close friends of mine, which we used to meet in Brussels oftenly, but we have to see each other in this new normal way of seeing each other interacting, thanks to COVID. With that, I think I will go straight to my presentation, if that is okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I hope you see my screen.
Yes.
Thank you. So first of all, I will want to start with the overall global e-commerce trend in the postal industry. I mean, the growth of e-commerce and cross-border e-commerce, which has established itself as the new frontier of either online trade or trade has been discussed a lot. So the postal trend for global e-commerce is not any different, and is growing at the same rates that have been earlier discussed in many forums today and yesterday with the same percentages. So from the UPU perspective, it's important that this rapidly changing environment, which is also an essential role that the post is playing, is ensuring that the right of communication through exchange of messages and, of course, the transportation of this e-commerce item is now even more relevant. In most countries, we know that the postal network constitutes an essential infrastructure for an inclusive and effective economy. So basically, global letter volumes have declined in the recent years. However, small packets and parcels volumes have increased. In a study done by McKinsey, the contrasting trends of mail and parcel market development have really forcefully shifted the center of gravity for postal services. The global volume of letter to parcel declined from 13 to 1 in 2005 to 4 to 1 in 2015, and by 2025 is expected to reach 1 to 1 parity, all because of course, e-commerce. Therefore, in trying to prepare the postal community and the UPU community for this growth, the UPU has several e-commerce activities, as you can see on the slide. The first one was to have to develop the regulations and the standards and policies that are required to govern this trade. To provide, secondly, the technical assistance and development cooperation, including, of course, addressing technology, which is very important in the postal network. There is the UPU operates within cycles. So this cycle of 2016 to 2020, there is a big project that covered almost the entire UPU membership called the Operational Readiness for E-commerce, which did a lot of work to make sure that the UPU fraternity is ready to embrace e-commerce. Electronic data capture and transmission is another activity that has been developed. Of course, transportation of mail is important, and more importantly, diversification. And we have started a new project to start transporting mail by rail just because of the sheer volumes that have come as a result of e-commerce. Paperless customs, we'll discuss that more, is another activity that has been developed and is supported by the UPU, product relationships, financial inclusion, knowledge development, and of course, quality of service and monitoring. One very important thing in this environment is, of course, collaboration. And therefore, smart collaboration and partnership development with all the stakeholders and the players in the industry is key. So the UPU also plays a great role in this collaborative effort with, of course, WCO, World Bank, the International Trade Center, the World Trade Organization, UNCTAD, and all the rest of the organizations involved. If I come more closely to the UPU's WCO collaboration, it's very important to note that, first of all, this collaboration is very, very old collaboration. The UPU's WCO UPU Contact Committee was established in 1965. So over the last 55 years, these joint activities that these organizations have been doing together has really resulted in a lot of guidance, support, and solutions for the membership of both UPU and WCO. A few among them is what you can see on the slides. The WCO UPU guidelines on data capture is a joint activity that has been produced, and these guidelines are available to our respective membership. So is the WCO UPU Postal Customs Guide, the joint, very important issue here. And because we're talking about COVID, there was a UPU WCO letter on actions during COVID, which really came to help our membership during the height of the COVID in April, when things were really at their peak, where the membership benefited from all the guidance material, and also where there were challenges because most, as you all know, that most of the, almost 95% of mail traditionally is carried in the belly hold of passenger aircraft. But the fact that the aviation industry came to a halt really changed the dynamics, and a lot of that mail had to shift to be transported on and service, either by rail or road, and it realized that a lot of customs administration were faced with documentations that they were not familiar with. And this collaboration and the joint letter signed by UPU and WCO, which was shared with their respective membership, really addressed this issue and kind of streamlined the challenge that came with the new mode of transports. If we look at the legislative landscape, with the result of e-commerce and of course electronic advanced data and the associated tools and solutions required, is really changing very fast. We all know that 2021 is a very critical year for electronic advanced data and by extension e-commerce. What you can see right now is the globe and how the legislation landscape looks like. Of course, we all know about the US Stop Act. We are aware of the European Commission's UCC ICS2 system, which is coming in March 2021, the Stop Act into January 2021, and so many others like Russia, China, Australia, Brazil. So all of them are coming up. So from the UPU's perspective, so what the UPU has done is to make sure that at the global level, that it has put the legislative framework that should help the designated operators, and therefore all designated operators shall comply as from January 2021 with the legislative requirement to capture and exchange electronic advanced data for international postal items containing goods in order to comply with those regulations, as I said. Of course, regionally, I've mentioned all that, so that is how the legislative looks like. And of course, COVID impact is great here, and we are working with all our membership because all the plans that we had to prepare our member countries have been disrupted by COVID, like it's disrupted everything else and caused kind of a lifequake to the globe. So that has been affected, and we are working on all the remedial solutions to make sure that we can still manage to meet those deadlines. So the key milestones, of course, the Stop Act, where we are today, I'll just focus on the one on the horizon, which is January 2021. As I said, the UPU has already made item attribute exchange, which is EAD exchange mandatory. Then we have the Stop Act coming in. We have 15th of March 2021, the European Commission's ICS2, which is for pre-departure. We will be having, of course, the 1st of March 2023, which is the release 2 of the ICS2, which is pre-arrival by air, and lastly, 1st of March 2024 for the other modes of transport, which is service, that's rail and road. So from the UPU's perspective, the UPU knew that this day was going to come, and this was an ongoing work for a long time. So what happened was that way back in 2012 at the Doha Congress, the UPU, as I said, put in the articles in the convention of the UPU regulations to make sure that the postal security and subsequent adoptions and associated provisions are all contained in the articles of the conventions of the regulations of UPU. So what you see today, right now on your screen, is the UPU Global Postal Model. So this is one of the things that the UPU started working on way back as 2015 to develop a global postal model for the union in response to the emerging requirements that I've just mentioned. One of the main important things that this global postal model activities and addresses is outreach activities to identify the exact nature of the EAD requirements. This means engaging to clarify with the requirements with the other stakeholders, WCO, ICAO, IATA, the European Commission, and so on. Another very important area that the Global Postal Model and the EAD roadmap was addressing is to create awareness and capacity building initiatives among the UPU member countries for the need of this requirement. And in this aspect, there was a lot of publications from the UPU to the membership, warning them about the upcoming deadlines and kind of really setting the alarm clock for the countdown. And of course, other information was shared with all the membership of how they can get help from the union with terms of the support required. Another very important area is to support the union member countries with technical support. And in this aspect, there are several initiatives that are ongoing. There's a huge project called the UPU's Global QSF Common Fund EAD Data Capture and Transmission Project that is currently supporting 140 member countries of the Union. And there's also support that came from the US Tide Fund from the Congress, to the Extraordinary Congress in 2019 for the implementation and adoption of EAD. And really, this is really helping the Union member countries to be ready for these upcoming requirements. Of course, we've all talked about data, and this is a data-driven world and data-driven trade. So today's world, of course, we all know is completely data-driven, and the key issues here, of course, is the big postal data, the data flows and their systems, how to protect the data, how to get into data sharing agreement, the legal demands that come with them, and of course, very important, the social requirements, which means protecting our customers and partners. And the UPU is really working on this area with the member countries. Again, supply chain is very critical. We have to have a smart supply chain and have an integrated postal network in the global supply chain network as a whole. Pre-advice and risk management is very important. Operational management of the supply chain is key. And of course, the advanced information for the administration of taxes and duties is also key. So when we come back to the smart supply chain, and this is where I think we are working very, very strongly with WCO, is the paperless custom processes, the UPU's custom declaration. This is a software application provided by the UPU's Postal Technology Center and developed on the basis of WCO UPU custom post EDI messages. Very important. We've really worked with WCO on this system, which will help in dematerialization of supporting documents, which will help in the support of electronic advanced data. It was initially produced with Canada Post, UK Border Force, and Royal Mail. And I'm sure Mike, who was one of the key people involved in this, will also have something to say on that. So this is very, very important. We are also now working with WCO on the interface of the CDS with the Asikuda system. We have already done some work that's in Gibraltar and now in Georgia. And once that has been proved, we want to roll out that to the rest of the UPU member countries and the WCO member states that are using the Asikuda world system. With that, I will say thank you and return the floor back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aiden, for that wonderful overview. And I'd like to say that the Universal Postal Union was a very important partner during the WCO's e-commerce work group meetings over the 3 years. At this time, I'd like to bring over another participant from the WCO e-commerce work group, Dietmar Joost of the Global Express Association. Dietmar, if you could request to speak, and we will let you in for your presentation. Excellent. We can see you now, Dietmar. So please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marianne, and good afternoon to everybody. It's a great pleasure to be part of this panel and to present a few thoughts from a Global Express perspective. Let me play the system and start to share my screen. Excellent. Thank you so much, Marianne. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome from the Global Express Association. Very privileged to be part of this conference here and to share our perspectives on the pandemic. Clearly, this is a technology conference, so clearly it's not only about the pandemic and also not only about e-commerce, but certainly we need to discuss what have we learned from both perspectives in order to derive lessons learned for the way forward. I'm speaking on behalf of our three members, DHL Express, FedEx, and UPS. And we have been quite busy over the last month during the pandemic. As you may be aware, the express delivery supply chain is an integrated transportation network, a door-to-door delivery from pickup to delivery, operating over 1,700 aircraft and nearly 200,000 vehicles around the world in 220 territories and countries. And our business is to move parcels and to move them fast. Anywhere between 24 to 72 hours, you can expect our parcels to be delivered. Now, what does that mean? Our network is tremendously dependent on and built upon technology. So what you see here on the screen is the flow of goods when we pick them up until we deliver them, and they stay in our custody throughout the process. There is no outside interference whatsoever, except for regulatory authorities who have access to our facilities. But in addition to those flow of goods, we also have a flow of information. So we make sure that we pick up the information from the shipper early on, and to take his data and to digitize everything that we get hold of in terms of the invoice, the certificates if they are needed, and any other supporting documentation that is required for the destination clearance. And this data is all digitized from the very beginning. So you can say this becomes our data pipeline for the entire process, door to door, and we are using and building upon our decisions and our operations on that data pipeline. And of course, we are making the information available at destination for clearance. Now, what that actually means is that we have been able to stay very resilient throughout the pandemic. But of course, we also have seen the impacts of the pandemic. We have noticed that from the March to April, we had seen a significant decline in volumes. But from April to May, we saw a tremendous bounce back of the volume. So we as an industry, we saw a tremendous, very sharp V curve in volume development. And of course, there were various reasons for that. Initially, governments decided to slow down, to close borders, to issue lockdowns, curfews, where goods could be delivered to the airport, but then the goods were stuck in the airport because delivery trucks were not allowed to deliver the parcel. So there was a tremendous amount of intervention, discussion, consultation, communication with governments to make sure that our door-to-door network could continue to operate. What we've seen overall, and this is an e-commerce panel, is that e-commerce and our door-to-door delivery services were pretty much one of the only supply chains that were functioning also for the people to deliver them with medical items, with critical items, even with food throughout the pandemic. As shops were closed, restaurants were closed, even until today. I'm speaking from Germany, and in Germany, all cafes, restaurants are closed. Grocery stores are open, but people have gotten used to let groceries even be transported to their doorstep. So overall, we can say we have seen, for example, in Latin America, we just concluded a conference there. E-commerce growth in 2020 exceeded 35%. So it is significant. What we have seen, however, is clearly from our industry perspective that our industry per se has shown a tremendous resilience. Clearly, it was based on the technology that we are using. We are not operating on paper, so we're digitizing everything at the very beginning, at pickup, so that our operations can stay safe. We are operating very safe, clean, and controlled facilities, so that additional hygiene measures were easy to implement. But of course, we were affected by, as I said, by curfews and quarantine measures that were issued. We've seen that health departments have taken over the decisions in governments, and that quite often border agencies were not consulted in identifying what's the impact of if I take this particular measure. So we were, of course, also affected also by the fact that a lot of customs officers could not reach their stations as public transportation was down, and they had work from home orders, etc. And if administrations then do not turn away from paper, then shipments are being held. They stay until clearance can take place. So what we've seen, and I cover this a little later, is that one of the lessons that we learned, and we are communicating this with governments, is let our express business remain express. Allow us to have a door-to-door network. Make sure that you're coordinating all of government in your measures, in your communication, whether it's federal or local level. You have to work together to enable that goods can be delivered to the final destination. Now, this certainly is critical for a lot of the medical items, even food and what have you. But guess what? We just heard this week the good news that the first vaccines are about to emerge on the market, and these vaccines need to be distributed. So for this vaccine distribution, we can only urge and encourage governments take a whole of government approach. Be mindful of speedy and smooth procedures so that these vaccines can be distributed to the people around the world in a fast and reliable fashion. The other lesson that we learned from the pandemic, and that brings me to my technology part that I'm going to present in a moment, is that we need to see borders as gateways and not as checkpoints. We need to empower, we need to enable authorities to apply technology, to go into a paperless mode and to apply electronic clearance procedures. In many countries, it is happening, but still, even though they are using an IT system, they often require that paper is being presented. Now, we've seen during the pandemic many, let's say, provisional or arrangements that are being made by allowing documentation, certificates to be submitted by email to authorities. But we hear from the governments that, oh well, these measures are only temporary. We may go back to the old system as soon as the pandemic allows us to do. And we of course we ask the question, why do you want to do that? You have all signed up to the WTO TFA, and Article 10.2 tells you that you should accept copies, electronic or otherwise, and you do not necessarily need to have to work on paper. So far we are operating on a paperless environment, but in many cases it's a temporary measure, and we are afraid that governments may go back to the old paper-based environment. And of course it's using ad hoc solutions, so we certainly need to get more robust solutions going. Now, when we talk about technology, we clearly we heard during the conference already that blockchain is being mentioned, and we believe as an industry that blockchain actually can provide, or the distributed ledger technology can provide a tremendous opportunity to ensure some of those paperless procedures, to ensure a trusted environment, to extend what we use in our own network, this data pipeline of all the data being available and all our parts parts and operations can use that data, to have such a data pipeline in an open forum, in an open space where everybody can contribute and facilitate and expedite the release and the clearance of goods. Now, we all know that technology alone will not do the trick. We urgently call everybody to rapidly implement the provisions as they are contained in the TFA or in the revised Kyoto Convention. But again, technology certainly is important in order to make progress. So I want to just briefly, make the case for distributed ledger technology, or blockchain, what it's being called. We want to dematerialize supporting documents, and we do this at our end, of course, by scanning the documents, and where governments want to have are fine with having access to this electronic document, that will be fine. But often at the destination point, we are printing out this document yet again, to make it subject to customs clearance procedures. So let us collectively work on dematerializing supporting documents from the beginning to the very end, from invoice over packing list, over licenses, permits, what have you. Let us get rid of paper and rely on electronic information, so that ultimately you can have access to the information from source. Do not expect us to scan the documents. It's not our information. We are taking it from the shipper, from other sources. We are just digitizing for our own purposes. But if it would be digitized from the very beginning, from the source, that would be much more secure, much more authentic, and the data integrity would be certainly of higher quality. So this is clearly for us the case for this technology. And if it's not now, when should we go for such a technology? I think the pandemic has provided a major disruption of everything we do. A lot of processes and practices have been reviewed, have been changed. We are speaking now to a camera rather than being at the WCO in their wonderful meeting facility, and we cannot have a coffee after the discussion. We are stuck to this technology for now. It's a major disruption of our business. So let's use the technology to ultimately to move forward. But what are the issues that we need to address? And here I want to make the case for customs and for the WCO to take a strong position here. We need a regulatory framework that allows for this technology. There is a wonderful publication from the World Trade Organization that has just been issued last week, and I can recommend everybody to have a good read of this documentation, where they come to the conclusion the technology is there, but regulatory frameworks are lagging behind, and it's for governments to ultimately get their legislation and their regulation into the 21st century so that this technology can be used to its full potential. Digitizing trade processes can only be as strong as its least digitized link. I mean, we as the express industry, we have our own data pipeline where everything is digitized. But at the end of the day, when we come to the destination country, often we need to print out everything, and submit it to customs. That needs to stop. We need to get all the participants in the supply chain linking up to a digitized network. So for us, the technology is not the limiting factor. It's regulatory policies and mindsets. Get people to operate on electronic means, and for this, I also call on those administrations who have temporarily allowed documents to be submitted by email. But think about it. Don't go back to the old-fashioned practices. Take this as an opportunity to really move forward. So we believe that customs, being at a pivotal role in the whole supply chain, can make a tremendous impact on unlocking this technology, as customs did many years ago with EDI and other technologies. Take a proactive role in doing so, as well as the WCO. Their data model will play a tremendous important role in standardizing, harmonizing blockchain developments around the world. Their data model is key. And it's a tremendous good news that the WCO is about to decide to remove the license fees on the data model so that it can be freely available to each and everybody for their developments. I think this is a tremendous development. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much, and certainly happy to answer any questions. And I hope you found our lessons learned and recommendations on this topic useful. Thank you very much, Marianne, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Dietmar. That was a very good overview. At this time, I'd like to have our last speaker, but certainly not least, Mike Leahy of CBSA. Mike was my co-chair during the last year of the WCO e-commerce workgroup. So I'd like to get our friend Mike Leahy in the queue and have him start his presentation. And don't forget to put your questions in the queue. We will take them up. We have a number of questions already, and I will read them out after Mike's presentation.
Hey, Mari.
All right, Mike, we can see you fine.
Can you hear me?
We can. Just share your screen and start your presentation.
I will. So if you can bring up slide 2, I'll start my story.
Okay, go ahead.
So I guess, Marianne, your intro was right on. Like CBSA, like most customs organizations, are challenged by the growth of e-commerce. And when COVID showed up and more consumers turned to online shopping, the problem just got bigger. And what does volume mean to a customs organization? It challenges our core mandate, our ability to intercept harmful products, our ability to facilitate legitimate trade, and our ability to collect the appropriate amounts of revenue. I didn't lead with a bunch of stats, but if you hear my dog barking in the background, that means there's an express carrier or a postal service delivering a package to my 19-year-old daughter, and that happens several times a day. So the volumes are very, very significant. What I'm going to talk to you a bit about today is what we're doing to address that phenomena. So if we go to the next slide, the key activities. This is essentially what we're doing to keep pace. And I'll go into some detail, but it starts with our approach to pre-arrival and collecting advanced data. So when I was in Brussels, I frequently told a story about a single shipment across that came to Canada with 40,000 manifests reporting small packages and 40,000 entries. And our legacy system broke when it tried to process that amount of data. So we prototyped it, and I'll walk through what the prototype looks like. A system for express consignments that's cloud-based, that is analytics-driven, that doesn't have the same constraints as our legacy services. So that's one of the features I'll touch on. At arrival, I'll talk to you a bit about what we're doing with artificial intelligence, including our ability to process and make sense of X-ray images. For those of you who did the test, our need to train officers and asking an officer to detect a gun part or an opioid in an X-ray image is not that easy. So the thinking has been, how do we use AI, machine learning, to teach X-ray machines what a gun part looks like, or what a gun looks like, or what may be a probability of an opioid. So I'll walk you through that. And lastly, we're looking with the express industry around virtual pre-clearance. So our previous thinking was we would take officers and move them to US express hubs, but the pandemic has put that on hold. So we're working with the express industry around what can we do virtually? Can we share X-ray images? Can we share our analytics approach? And we're still pursuing how we can partner with the express industry to perform the same type of upfront decision making. So if we jump into the next slide, I'll give you a rundown of what we did around gun interdiction.
Hold on, Mike. Yeah, should we be on slide 4?
Yeah, let's go to slide 4.
Okay, and if you can hold your microphone closer to your mouth, may increase the volume.
Okay, I'll do my best. So back in fall of 2018, we sent a team with a couple of partners from the private sector to Seattle, Washington, with a mission and a mandate to teach, to build an algorithm to look for guns in X-ray images. So we created a data bank of 260,000 X-ray images, and we sent that team to go and build an algorithm that could say, this looks like a gun. And the result of that initial exercise was we had an algorithm that could detect a gun in a package, an X-ray image, 65% of the time. We took that work and we brought it back to Canada. We continued to work with open source AI solutions, and we took the team and tried different approaches, and ultimately we got the algorithm up to a 95% hit rate. So this is on full guns. So and the problem space is, yes, guns can be shipped through small package consignments, but we're also seeing gun parts. So that team is using the same techniques to say, how do we introduce AI such that we can actually detect the probability of a gun or a gun part in a package. So that's really an alternate approach to expecting an officer to look at an X-ray image all day long and say, I think that's a gun part. The training, the difficulty in maintaining that as a posture is significant versus let the machine run its algorithm, let the machine understand and learn what a gun or a gun part looks like. So if we move to slide 5, we've taken a similar approach to opioid detection. Again, using advanced data and using AI techniques, we're looking for the probability based on the data, based on the X-ray image that a package contains harm. In this case, we focused on opioids. And it was essentially the same opportunity. How do you take open source data around an address, around an entity? How do you take X-ray images? How do you combine that to say, what's the probability that this package has opioids? And that's really the crux. And what I'm describing here is largely what came out of Brussels in the framework of standards. So it's all about advanced data. It's about analytics. It's about a risk-based approach. It's about partnerships. And that's really what these initiatives represent. So the opioid detection piece is really the fundamental analytics approach to what I'm going to talk to you next. And if we want to go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, our legacy systems were not designed to handle the volume of e-commerce that we're seeing today. So we built an application. It's housed in the cloud. We have an ability to port the data directly into the cloud such that it's not going through our legacy infrastructure. And the concept here, the prototype is demonstrating that what we can do is present a large amount of data for our officers to review. We can select shipments for inspection, and then we can do follow-up examinations, but we can do it differently. And I'll walk you through what that looks like over the next couple of slides. So this prototype is in beta testing. If we go to slide 7. And there we go. So we built a prototype. It's housed in the cloud. Our officers can go in and look at essentially their workload. And this came out of the idea came out of the Port of Hamilton, which is close to Toronto Airport. And here's the stat that I do like to throw around. Hamilton has seen over the last 5 years, 528% growth in largely attributed to e-commerce. Their workforce hasn't grown, but they've seen an enormous growth in volume. So this team from Hamilton was fundamental in developing, designing rapidly an interface and the rest of the components of a system that will be able to process and manage the volume of work that that port of entry sees. So we have a review stage where officers can work. If we go to the next slide, we have an inspect stage. So if we want to advance the screen, you get a sense, and this is a significant lift for our officers. The ability to work remotely. So when you're doing inspection of packages, you want the ability to have a mobile device that allows you to get shipment details, look at the package, and to make a decision about the decision to hold it for examination or to let it to release it into the economy. So this shift in workload is very significant, and it allows the officer to tell the algorithm that's selecting shipments for examination whether or not it's effective. So you get an immediate feedback loop that allows your overall program to benefit from the fact that you have a rapid response from your officers telling you that we have a problem or we don't. So the next slide, if you go to slide number, we can advance this to slide number 10, please. Again, you get a sense of what this looks like, and it's giving the officer the flexibility to make rapid decisions and making those decisions while mobile. So they can be on the floor at a facility at the airport, and they can make decisions without having to go back to their office computer to record what's happened. So this is a fundamental shift in how they do their work. So I think, Mary, I think I'll stop there. The rest of the slides are essentially how we process, but this is the most significant lift we made towards addressing what we've seen in the e-commerce space. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And before I let you go, we're going to move into some questions. So while I have you, I'll ask you, have you seen any changes in trading patterns, either between international trade shipments versus e-commerce shipments, or even the mix of countries that volumes are coming from? So what have you seen over this last several months?
Yeah, I think like Dietmar mentioned, we saw a lull at the beginning, like everything kind of went silent. And then countries like China picked up again. And now we're back to record growth, whether it's postal imports or commercial imports. And when we were in Brussels, Carol West used to mention frequently that e-commerce wasn't just air consignments or truck consignments. Right. It's all modes. So we're seeing small packages come in shipping containers. And those trends are actually growing. So when air cargo was at a premium right after the pandemic struck, traders moved to different transportation modes. So we saw ocean containers filled with small packages.
Yeah, we see the same thing in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. I know that we have some other questions coming in. I will read a question that we had gotten in the chat for Mr. Aiden, and whether the post by rail is moved across borders and the impact of this or the future of this. And Mr. Aiden replied, the post by rail was very successful during the height of the COVID between Asia and Europe. Close to 22 mail-only blockchains have transported about 9,000 tons of mail for over 30 countries in Europe. So that shows you the shift that is happening. We don't talk about rail as much. We also have a question for GEA. What technology solutions are available to help customs administrations to deal with falsification of supporting documents in a paperless environment? So Dietmar, if you want to hit request to speak and address that issue.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you. Thanks for the presentation. Excellent panel. It's a revival of the e-commerce working group, pretty much, on this panel here. So that's great. Well, you know, to the question, I think I refer to it. We believe that actually blockchain or distributed ledger technology can be is the solution or a solution to bring us a lot closer to having more trust and confidence in supporting documents, as those supporting documents would actually be issued by the source, by the issuing authority, be it the shipper or be it a government agency, and the document would be submitted directly and without any interference into the blockchain, and any attempt to access or to modify and falsify this document on the blockchain would be traceable. So of course, it doesn't necessarily prevent all falsification to go away. If the source is fraud and fraudulent, then certainly it is fraudulent throughout the chain. But let's assume that the source of the information is a legitimate entity and would provide legitimate information into that blockchain. That information can then be trusted throughout, and any variation or modification could be detected. For us, this certainly seems to be a way forward. Another technology, which is less of a technology but a trusted environment, is go off and trust your AEOs. If you have an AEO program and you have done all these wonderful thorough validations on a company that it is waterproof, tight, has internal control procedures, that it can be trusted, it's financially reliable, etc., etc. Why do you ask for that AEO for each and every transaction, all the same documentation that you would ask from any other Tom, Dick, or Harry? So please start to use and leverage the AEO program as a vehicle to reduce the bureaucracy, to reduce the complexity of import and export processing.
Thanks, Dietmar. I thought those are interesting comments, and it's something we've been working at a long time with AEO, and you think we could be able to build upon that, especially in this environment where we're going to be forced to change. There's no doubt about it. Mike, I just want to ask a final question to you, and that is, in the development of your app and the algorithms, has that helped reduce the labor-intensive nature of CBSA dealing with e-commerce shipments and processing them?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This is designed to let the majority of shipments out the door, like to immediate release them, and let the algorithm be smart enough to say we only need to hold these because they hold a high probability of risk. So it's a process that's designed to say hold 5 or 10 and let 40,000 go. It's really about immediate release.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for a great panel. I'd like to thank my speakers, Mr. Noor Aden from UPU, Dietmar Joost of GEA, and Mike Leahy of CBSA. And I'll hand it over back to the WCO and hopefully get back on time.
Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you, Marian, and thank you to all our speakers. I enjoyed the session a lot, and I hope it has provided valuable insights to our participants as well. Now let me announce the winner of the second set, the daily prize of branded Beat headphones. This is the very first answer in our activity feed was correct. So the winner is Mohamed Baghelil. With this, we have come to the end of day 2. We will resume tomorrow at noon Brussels time. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you back tomorrow for another day full of insights about the impact of the pandemic on our professional lives and what the future will look like. Thank you all for your active participation and see you back tomorrow at noon Central European Time.